Introduction to the Legend of Time Mage. www.zhaozhuiyuan.com. Why does the esteemed Grand Duke of Erin have a lifelong enemy? Why is the mysterious veil of the chaotic system suddenly lifted by people? Why is the young Duke of Oxford covered in green on his head? Where exactly does the mysterious alien insect king come from? Stay tuned for the large-scale documentary. The Legend of Zheluo. This article is at the Jianyu and Duanmu levels. https://www.zheishuan.com. Wedge China Pavilion. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. The Grand World School dispute has attracted widespread attention on the internet, and the national government teams of various powerful countries have already walked through their neighboring countries and begun to challenge the national pavilions of magical powers on various continents. A medium-sized trunk airliner skimmed through the clouds and gradually entered the east side of Chinese mainland. The three-color rice flag pattern printed on the wing of the aircraft indicates that it is a British airliner. The flight conditions of Mediterranean airlines are really terrible. When we went to Dubai before, we only provided us with some orange juice and didn't even have any brandy. Now I'm going to China, a big eastern country, and the first-class cabin doesn't even have a bottle of whiskey. Sad complained while holding a bottle of authentic British-made Mao Tai. There's no way. Who made Mediterranean Airlines the sponsor of our national government team this time? We have to use Mediterranean Airlines flights throughout our international training. Zheluo shook his dazzling green hair helplessly and said, he is also very dissatisfied with the sponsorship system of the World University competition. Even their final team uniforms are customized by sponsors. Zheluo has seen samples of the team uniform before, and to be honest, that set of jerseys is not ugly, it has a British style. But for Zheluo, who is accustomed to wearing custom-made clothing, this uniform does not fit his style. He always likes more unique ones. Captain, will we go challenge the China Pavilion after we get off the plane? Hilbert asked Zheluo. The plane is about to arrive at Shanghai Hongqiao Airport, and Captain Zheluo needs to make up his mind about the things he is experiencing. Irene crossed her fingers on her lap, in a serene posture of a young gentleman. Upon hearing Hilbert's question, she blinked her golden eyes and suggested excitedly, after we arrived in Asia, we took the national emblem of Japan and South Korea all the way and didn't rest much. When we arrived in Shanghai, let's go to the Taikuli in the front beach and take a good rest. Irene had already watched a lot of videos about Shanghai on YouTube before coming to China, and she had no resistance to those exquisite and gorgeous Chinese hanfu. I also fell in love with the round Chinese umbrella. There were several times before when Zheluo saw Eileen gesturing empty-handed on her face in private, fantasizing about the beautiful picture of herself holding a Chinese umbrella to cover her face. When Eileen was still at the Seoul Pavilion in South Korea, she was already studying the good news of Shanghai's shopping malls. Obviously, she was ready to contribute to the GDP output value of Shanghai, China this year. Zheluo looked at her and said, didn't you already buy a lot of kimonos and hanbok before? Why do you still want to buy them? Irene's golden eyes widened and she said disapprovingly to Philo, is it okay that kimono and hanfu are completely different? Hanfu is obviously more atmospheric, beautiful, and has brighter colors. Do you understand how to appreciate it? Zheluo rolled his eyes, unable to distinguish the significant difference between hanfu and hanfu. The clothes Eileen bought were all high-end goods made of luxurious silk, and the comfort of wearing them was similar except for their different appearances. However, she felt like she had a collection fetish and had to buy a bunch of clothes when going to that place. She had to buy some styles that she liked but didn't have them in stock and have them shipped by the merchant, which made Zheluo, who didn't have much obsession with dressing up, very puzzled. It's better to sponsor our government team with this money, so we don't have to drink those strange drinks provided by Mediterranean Airlines anymore. Zheluo took a sip of that Mao Tai liquor and could only say that he really couldn't appreciate the strong liquor that hurts his stomach and throat like Dongfang. He didn't drink any more after just one sip, and the rest was left to Shad and Hilbert, who enjoyed tasting fine wines from various countries. Irene raised her delicate little face and said disdainfully, "Can you manage me if I have money?" Zheluo turned his head and closed his eyes to rest his mind, ignoring this suddenly capricious little Gongju. If someone really has money and wants to spend it, he really can't control it. So why bother talking so much? A few members of the British government watched their noses, and hearts, but did not intervene in the dispute between the captain and Xiao Gongju. If these two immortal fighting methods were to participate rashly, ordinary people like them would suffer greatly. Irene saw that Zheluo didn't argue or say anything more, and she closed her eyes and entered a state of meditation to start practicing. The plane quickly landed on the runway of Hongqiao Airport without any accidents along the way, but this is also normal. Even flights from some small West Asian countries rarely experience tragic air accidents caused by feather demon attacks. As a major country, China naturally cannot have such an embarrassing situation. The speed of this plane is also not fast. Why not let the captain's griffin take us on a flight? Muan complained a bit. Getting used to the griffin's bravery before taking the plane was somewhat dull. Deputy Captain Weston said somewhat better, "You, as an assistant who follows the pastor's path, actually enjoys excitement so much. Why didn't you choose a violent and destructive magic awakening in the beginning?" Muan caressed his face and said confidently, "I just feel that my aggressive and handsome face is actually an aid. It's really a waste of resources." The Muan family has an ancient healing tradition, but this guy is actually a ghost fire boy with a destructive dream in his heart. When he awakened magic, he wanted to assist in awakening the fire system, but after being severely beaten by his father, he temporarily put this idea aside. After agreeing with his father that he would be able to choose the quaternary system independently after reaching a super level, he finally no longer had the slightest intention of concealing his true nature as a violent maniac. You still have the face to say that you, as an Englishman, are afraid of water. It's really shameful, shameful. Shepard refused at all and directly retorted to Weston. Every Englishman is a born sailor, and as a result, Weston awakened 3 magical fire, earth, and light systems, none of which had anything to do with water, living like a dry duck. The violent wizard's Weston temper is naturally extremely hot, and his fear of water has always been a thorn in his heart. Whoever mentions him is in a hurry. As the two of them argued and became increasingly angry, Captain Zheluo had no intention of standing up to mediate. Irene quickly stepped forward and changed the topic, saying, "Are you going to challenge Zheluo at the Chinese National Pavilion in the future? I heard that there are several strong defending members of this Chinese National Pavilion team. Aaron, who specializes in spiritual cultivation, is also a master of handling people's hearts. She knows that as the absolute core of this team, Zheluo's actions and opinions are undoubtedly the most influential, and she doesn't even need him to dissuade her. She can only express her opinions in the simplest way to quell this dispute." Everything was just as Eileen had imagined, and before Zheluo could say anything, Pastoral and Weston stopped arguing and turned their gaze to Zheluo on the side. Not only the two of them, but also the other team members, including Eileen herself, who asked the question. This feeling of being noticed and stared at by a group of people even after more than a decade, still makes Zheluo uncomfortable. "I won't go, you guys discuss the lineup, and after playing, just go and get the government badge." "Oh, aren't you planning to take a look? I heard there are several experts in the Chinese embassy now, and the Egyptian government was already in their hands before," Eileen said. She picked up her phone and gestured for them to be on the oil pipe. "What kind of strong players can there be in the National Pavilion?" It's estimated that the Chinese pavilion is just like the national pavilion teams of Japan and South Korea. Leaving a member with the strength of the national government team to guard the pavilion, I'm still a bit interested in the Chinese national government team. Zheluo didn't care, as challenging any national pavilion with his strength would be meaningless and a waste of time. "Oh, have you decided not to go to the China pavilion? It won't change no matter what." "Well, It's decided and it won't change. Is this a guarantee from a gentleman? Well, yes. A gentleman from Oxford, said Jirian with a proud expression as he looked up. Irene nodded without further hesitation and said, okay, let's contact each other after the challenge. Once it's over in China, we'll fly directly to India to participate in the training. Okay, let's stay in touch anytime if there's anything. Zheluo nodded and walked directly out of the cockpit. He planned to go to the magic store and Hunter Alliance in Shanghai to see if there were any good things to buy. The magic material market and auction houses in Shanghai are quite famous throughout Asia, and as a major country, China's rich magic resources and types of demons can rank among the top 3 in the world. Zheluo and Eileen have a similarity in that Eileen paid attention to a large number of high-end shopping malls and some traditional Chinese cultural crafts on YouTube in advance, while Zheluo paid attention to various magic material distribution centers in Shanghai, as well as some Chinese characteristic magic tool stores and wizard hunting firms in advance. The difference lies in the focus of their attention, and similarly, neither of them engages in unprepared battles. It is precisely because of this that Eileen can sometimes play a more important role in the national team than Vice Captain Weston. In situations where there is not much difference in strength, wisdom is the biggest leverage to widen the gap between the two sides. Moreover, Weston may not necessarily be able to win over Eileen. With the Destruction Mage from Weston and the highly comprehensive Mage from Eileen, along with the Healing Mage's Pastoral and Summoning Mage's Shad, to challenge Guoguan Zheluo, they can be so confident that they don't care about anything. With their team strength, even the Guoguan team can fight in one battle, let alone a Guoguan team. After leaving Hongqiao Airport, Zheluo completely forgot about challenging the National Pavilion and opened Google Maps and navigation to head straight to the nearest magic market. On the other hand, Eileen, along with several other members of the British government, directly sat on the long-awaited extended Lincoln and headed straight to the CBD on the Bund of Shanghai. Both sides are heading towards different destinations, but they both have a bright future. Say something, because there aren't many words, I won't open a separate chapter. I have been watching Time Mages for quite some time. It seems like I started watching them in junior high school, and now I have reached the age of going to college, but I haven't gone yet. When I first found a Time Mage on the new book list at Chidian, it was only about 100 chapters that had not yet been put on the shelves. At that time, I read about a few chapters and thought it was okay, so I collected the entire method in my bookshelf and raised it to ashes. This upbringing lasted for over a year. At that time, I almost forgot that I still had this book in my collection because my phone broke down and I didn't have the money to buy a new one, which resulted in me not being able to read novels for over a year. By the time I clicked on Quan Fa again, it was already the end of the Guofu plot. It can be said that in the early stages of Quan Fa, I watched it by jumping around, although I later added it from front to back. Now I have gone from being a junior high school student to a newcomer to the workplace, and Time Mages have also gone through the process of serialization, completion, removal, rewriting, and listing. Time Mages have now released manga and anime versions, and the boutique novel, which is still the starting point, can be said to be very successful. Even Starting Point's fan fiction has produced a high-quality fan, and it can be said that Time Mages are already a considerable IP. I claim to be a fan of online literature and often wonder why Quan Fa can write so well and achieve such excellent results. So many people must have done something right when reading and following the complete method, or in other words, some of its content has been written into the hearts of book enthusiasts, like stabbing a knife directly into their hearts and lungs. But after reading the original work and a group of fellow French scholars, I found that almost all of them were written about grassroots rise and confrontation with certain social cancer like rulers, or extremely selfish schools only for their own power and influence. In fact, this is not reasonable for a complete society and worldview, so I want to use the keyboard to write a story about the upper class of the magical society cultivated by the elite organizational forces, a person who is willing to work for social change even if he comes from a superior background. A normal world is by no means just black and white, and the complexity of human nature cannot be fully expressed through just one person and one story. So I want to create a story that exhausts all my fantasies about the children of the top society, filling some gaps in the worldview of the whole France. In my imagination, he is a top-notch second-generation like Mountbatten and Churchill, yet surpassing others. In Dream of the Red Chamber, Jomo once claimed to be from a middle-class family, and I want to write about a child raised by a superior family. Although his material conditions are at the top of society, he is not completely separated from the middle and lower classes, and has not been completely alienated by power and money into a Zheluo-style character. He will not be a saint, let alone a perfect person. All decisions must be made after careful consideration and confirmation that they will not endanger oneself. He is like a dandelion floating in the sky, no one knows where he will eventually drift, and this is just like our own life. Also, if you don't like this book, you can leave, but don't leave any bad language. Such behavior won't harm me, and it won't be good for such readers. Moreover, if you curse too much, it may even bring me some black and red traffic. You don't want me to take advantage of you, do you? Well, that's probably all. Chapter 1. Zheluo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. The Hongqiao Magic Market is a huge magic commercial area located within the commercial area of Hongqiao Airport. With the convenient transportation of the international airport, it is the first magic market that many foreigners come to China to visit. The advantage of the Hongqiao Magic Market over the magic shops outside lies in the products here, which are duty-free. The temptation of tax exemption is deadly for many foreign mages with limited budgets. With the cultivation resources of various magic departments, unprocessed magic and demon materials, and exquisite magical tools, this place is simply a huge consumer spending pit. It is said that no wizard's wallet can fully walk out of the door of Hongqiao Market, and Zheluo's first stop in China was chosen here. Merchants in the Hongqiao Market who can afford to rent will naturally not sell magic tools with quality issues on this golden storefront. This is a foolish act of smashing their own brand. Spiritual level Qingling Jade, suitable for wind mages with intermediate and above cultivation levels. It can increase the casting and movement speed of wind mages, with a selling price of only 8 million yuan. The latest feed designed by Master Jiang Hongzheng, the chief animal taming master of Zhao Group and the top animal taming feed master renowned in Taiwan for 30 years, is more suitable for China's animal taming physique. A pack of feed is only 100,000 yuan. Dragon Tooth Short Blade, made entirely from several of the sharpest dragon teeth of a leader-level pseudo-dragon. With exquisite fire control, it retains the fierce toxicity of the dragon teeth themselves, and its quality is identified as a spirit-level top-grade slaying magic tool. It is suitable for close-range spikes and high mobility but lacking destructive power mages, with a price of 20 million. Zheluo turned his head and walked past the magic tool store selling dragon teeth and short blades. Spending 20 million yuan to buy a fake dragon material-made slaying magic tool is still a bit uneconomical. If you spend more money, you can find a big brand in London to customize one. He also strolled around the Hongqiao Market for a while, and the magic tool resources in various stores in the market cannot be said to be bad, but there are not many suitable for him and his teammates, all of which are branded products that can be bought anywhere. One of the rarer ones is the auxiliary magic tool Qingling Jade. Although Zheluo couldn't appreciate the connotation inside the rotating Chinese pattern, it didn't prevent him from looking good. But unfortunately, even this eye-catching magic weapon is not worth considering for its current growth rate. Buying it can only be used as a decoration, and it is not worth buying at the expense of some money. Suddenly, a middle-aged man who was clean and hygienic in the market spoke to Zheluo and said, "Young man, I saw you arrive at the Hongqiao Market early in the morning, and you haven't bought what you want to go around." Zheluo looked at the middle-aged uncle who suddenly approached with confusion. He spoke in English, but his tone was a bit strange. After staying for a few seconds, Zheluo finally realized and replied in English, I really didn't find the product I liked. Do you have any good recommendations? The middle-aged uncle laughed when he heard Zheluo's tone and said, oh, listen to this pronunciation, it's still an old London flag with the Chinese character of rice. This time, the middle-aged uncle spoke Mandarin, and Zheluo could understand every word, but when combined, he couldn't understand it. Zheluo didn't speak this time, just answered him with an expression. The middle-aged man said to himself, I've noticed you since you entered the door. Your green hair is really eye-catching, and later you swayed around in the market with a very deceptive look. If I hadn't seen you just strolling around without paying, would have thought you were a fool. Buying things at the airport would be a sign of being bullied. This time, Zheluo understood and asked, do you have any good places to recommend? Zheluo spoke the most standard Mandarin, and the middle-aged man was taken aback when he remembered what he had just said. He felt a bit embarrassed and said, oh, then so you can speak Chinese. Well, just say I understand. Seeing that Zheluo didn't pay attention to his previous words, the middle-aged uncle also let go of his worries. He was also an old man in the interpersonal world, and flipping the boat completely didn't put any pressure on him. I see you've been picking and choosing for so long without buying a single item, and I know you're a high-minded mass-market person you don't like. Based on my experience as a security guard and janitor in various markets and clubs, what I can tell you is that in Shanghai, no truly well established old store would open in these large shopping malls. The business districts that are currently very popular, such as Nanjing Road and Lujiazui, are all wild chicken brands with only a few decades of history. What kind of heritage can a decades-old brand have? The stores in Shanghai that truly have heritage are all membership-based. They specialize in providing private customization services for those with power and influence. Even if you have money, they may not necessarily serve you. Zheluo's eyes were bright, and every word about membership and private customization hit his weakness. He, Lord Niu, has come to the right place. Does Zheluo lack any membership or customization fees? It's completely impossible, okay. He pursues the unique personality and high quality of customized products, and his rational consumption will not be much stronger than Eileen's when it can meet his needs. Taking out a few hundred yuan worth of Chinese yuan that had just been exchanged from the self-service bank at the airport from his suit pocket, he handed it to the middle-aged uncle and asked Zheluo, can you tell me in detail about the well-established old shops in Shanghai? The middle-aged uncle skillfully took the money from Zheluo's hand and put it into his pocket. He also took the time to raise his eyebrows and give Zheluo a look of understanding that you are now giving. After receiving Zheluo's middle-aged uncle, he didn't hide it anymore and said directly, if you want to find a century-old shop with a rich background, you can't come to Pudong. You have to go to Puxi. On the old street of Jing'an, there is a Qingda Fang, which was originally established as a magic tool and tool-making workshop in Suzhou Prefecture during the Ming Dynasty's Qinghua period. In just a few years, due to its exquisite craftsmanship and materials, it has become the preferred supplier of magic tools for various high-ranking officials and powerful individuals. Later, he was favored by the heavenly family and granted the title of Imperial Merchant, which was exclusively used by members of the imperial family and the court as magical tools and artifacts. He served the imperial families of the Ming and Qing dynasties. The Shanghai Jing'an branch was opened by Qingda Fang during the golden decade of the Republic of China. It absorbed foreign magic tool-making techniques and design concepts, and is currently the largest and most cost-effective branch of Qingda Fang in China. The middle-aged uncle looked at Zheluo's clothes again and said, Qingda Fang has a history of hundreds of years, and has never been served by any high-ranking official. It can definitely satisfy all your nitpicking. Zheluo wore a custom-made full-length suit, without any brand logo on his entire body. Ironed clothes can shine without any wrinkles, indicating a person who is very picky and strict about themselves and things. It is indeed appropriate and accurate for the middle-aged uncle to give such a recommendation to Zheluo after making a basic judgment. It can help Zheluo quickly find a suitable store and avoid unnecessary time loss, which is worth the money. You young wizards have skills, unlike us who have awakened to magic but can only do some insignificant work in the city, earning a monthly salary of 9,000 to 10,000 yuan. The middle-aged man suddenly began to emo. You are also very hard-working. You are still fighting outside at an old age, said Zheluo humbly. The middle-aged man glanced at Zheluo and said, at your age, you may not understand. When you reach my age and come all the way out to work, it's mostly due to family issues. Zheluo didn't answer, he really didn't quite understand the problem. We have mediocre talents, but we don't have the courage to leave the city and seek opportunities to become stronger in the land of demons. We can only live in the city, watching our contemporaries and young people younger than us go to waste our lives. As he spoke, the middle-aged man took a pack of cigarettes from his pocket and lit them, and even scattered a cigarette for Zheluo. Zheluo reached out and stopped the hand that handed over the cigarette, saying with a smile, "Thank you, I don't smoke." The middle-aged man looked surprised and couldn't understand why there were still men in the world who didn't smoke. It must be because foreigners couldn't get used to smoking Chinese cigarettes, so he didn't force it. In fact, you don't need to be too modest. Society is a large and precise machine, and every screw has its own function. Mages who work and live in the city may not need to face fierce demons like battle mages, but they also contribute their efforts to the construction of the country and society. Battle mages are the defenders of the country, while countless city mages like you are the builders of the country. Battle mages are skilled in combat, but they have long been separated from social production and have a huge number. They need a huge logistics force to provide them with services, and the front line behind this is provided by city mages like you. Demons threaten human survival, and in a sense, both production mages and combat mages are warriors fighting on the front line. In front of God, our souls are completely equal to each other, so there is no need to distinguish between high and low. The middle-aged man opened his mouth and was shocked to the point where he couldn't speak. It's not surprising that others are doing well. This person wearing a suit and tie can speak. This principle was set one by one, and the middle-aged man silently memorized this set of rhetoric in his heart. Afterwards, he had to play it hard in front of old Wang and old Li. Although he strongly agreed in his heart, the middle-aged man still said, although that's the case, the income of their combat mages is high. It's normal for them to earn over 100,000 yuan after hunting monsters. Unlike us, we can only receive a fixed monthly salary and live a constant life every day. The middle-aged uncle still tried to prove a certain superiority of the battle mage, but this time Zheluo suddenly interrupted him. What do you think is your current income level in Shanghai? The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment, but he didn't expect this polite foreigner to suddenly ask like this. After all, he replied, my base salary is 9,000 yuan, and with our respective benefits and overtime pay, I can earn over 10,000 yuan in a month. Although it's not particularly high in Shanghai, it has already exceeded the median income line, which is much higher than what I earned in my hometown of Shaanxi. Moreover, our boss is very talkative and manages our employees very well. He is also very user-friendly, and there is a monthly transportation subsidy for going home. The middle-aged man laughed as he spoke. In this era of tense labor relations, finding such a job is indeed something he is proud of. Zheluo smiled and said, assuming you are a boss from Shanghai, you are responsible for the sanitation and cleaning projects in the surrounding neighborhoods. In order to carry out the company's business, you hired a young, strong, and hard-working young man from another city for a monthly salary of 5,000 yuan. He can work for 2 people on his own. To encourage him to continue working hard, you increased his salary from 5,000 yuan to 10,000 yuan in the second month. After getting a raise, he did double his salary as you expected, but 2 or 3 months later, you suddenly heard him complain privately that he hasn't received a raise even after 2 or 3 months. At this point, Zheluo stopped and smiled at the middle-aged man, who frowned and couldn't understand what the foreigner was trying to express. Since that young man is capable, why not give him a raise? It's such a simple thing. What's a boss who's afraid of employees making money? Questioned the middle-aged man. Zheluo still maintained a smile and said, for a boss, the content of this job and the young man's salary are only worth more than 10,000 yuan. No matter how clean the street is, it cannot bring more benefits to the boss. The boss or business owner will not give a person an income that exceeds his value. The middle-aged uncle wanted to refute something, but felt that what Zheluo said was reasonable. Sweeping the streets is a job that doesn't have much content, earning just over 10,000 yuan is about it. However, he always feels like he is holding a breath of anger and doesn't know how to vent it, so he just keeps silent. Zheluo smiled with satisfaction at his uncle's gloomy expression and said, you have also noticed that the expectations of employees for an increase in income are not completely aligned with the interests of the top management of the company. A person who makes 100% effort within a company can only receive a maximum return of 30.4%, which is based on the boss's high regard for him. Most people actually do not have this return rate. The boss wants to earn more money in the project, and the employees want to earn more wages. From their perspective, they are not wrong, and their demands are completely reasonable. In an international metropolis like Shanghai, a salary of less than 10,000 yuan is just a free labor force for enterprises. Zheluo adjusted his tie, maintaining a polite smile at the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were cold and indifferent. Middle-aged Uncle Hu Weidong stood in a daze in his mind, a mess in his mind. The more he listened to Zheluo's words, the more he felt that his original worldview was about to collapse. He is a migrant worker who has already earned over 10,000 yuan in Shanghai, which is not a small amount. Many students from newly graduated magic schools cannot receive his salary. The median monthly income in Shanghai is only over 6,000, and his monthly salary, overtime, and various benefits exceed the median by more than half. But now young foreigners in front of them say that under 10,000 yuan is free labor. What is his income like, a newcomer in the workplace? Is it the high self-esteem of a magical powerhouse or the second generation why not eat minced meat? Or rather, in his world, a monthly income of 10,000 is free labor. Hu Weidong couldn't distinguish for a moment whether Zheluo was bragging or not. But if you do the same thing in another form, the results will be completely different. Zheluo once again showed a perfect smile that was like a spring breeze, as if the previous coldness and ruthlessness were all illusions. You give him a monthly salary of 5,000 yuan, and he will become a full-time employee after the second month of his internship. The company provides 3 meals a day, and if he has housing, he will only be given a housing subsidy of 2,000 yuan per month. As he comes from another city and does not have convenient transportation in Shanghai, he will be given an additional 1,000 yuan in transportation subsidies. He will be given 2 days off per week for 8 days a month. If there is something else that requires additional leave, as long as he can find a colleague to help him with his shift, he can leave. After that, he can go back to work for him. Well, give him another month's transportation subsidy of 1,000 yuan for visiting relatives' expenses, whether he takes a plane or high-speed rail, as long as it is within 1,000 yuan, he can be reimbursed. Think about it, if you were an outsider who just came to work in Shanghai, what would your attitude be towards the person who provides you with such a job? Zheluo smiled and looked into Uncle Hu Weidong's eyes. I can. Hu Weidong took a deep breath and wanted to say some rebuttal, but he couldn't open his mouth. A young man from another city who came to work in Shanghai, what else do he want with this treatment? Would you be grateful to the boss who provided you with such a humane job, and take pride in this job and work wholeheartedly for the boss every day? Seeing Hu Weidong's gaze, Zheluo already understood his answer. Zhaoshuyuan.com, you will find that the salary you paid to that young man is actually the same or even less than the previous plan. but the results achieved are definitely much better than the previous plan. This is human nature. In other words, this philosopher had no trace of a smile. I have heard a Chinese saying. Break a person's leg, give them a pair of crutches, and then tell them. Without me, you can't even walk, so you need to know how to be grateful. This statement makes sense because it aligns with human nature. So you see, life is actually a battlefield that never stops until death. Whether it's the battle mages who go to the wilderness to fight against demons, or the people who work hard in the city, they are constantly fighting for survival and cannot stop for a moment. You can fail, fall, but never stop. People living in cities can only escape the fate of being deprived by putting in all their efforts to study and work, and accumulating enough knowledge and resources in an industry. At that time, if you put in another 100% effort, you will receive a reward of 3.4%. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't expect to have wasted so much of your precious time by being careless. Zheluo looked at the watch on his wrist and apologized. I have to go now, wish you a happy life. After saying this, Zheluo left without looking back, leaving only a middle-aged uncle named Hu Weidong who was a bit messy in place. By the time Hu Weidong regained his senses from Zheluo's words, his presence had long disappeared from the Hongqiao market. What kind of person is this little foreigner? Hu Weidong murmured, living for most of his life but feeling like he hasn't lived as well as Zheluo, a person in his early 20s. Chapter 2. Exotic Insects. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. According to the middle-aged uncle, Zheluo arrived at Qingdafang in JA district. My body has been shaped like a crane, with 1,000 pine trees and 2 letters of scriptures. When I asked, there is no need to say, clouds are in the blue sky and water is in the bottle. Zheluo held a book called The Biography of Emperor Jiajing of the Ming Dynasty, in his hand, reciting this poem by the Chinese Tang Dynasty poet Li Ao in Mandarin, while strolling around the Jingyan store in Qingdafang, feeling the ancient philosophy of the East that is full of understanding human wisdom. The wisdom of Chinese people cannot be easily underestimated. They have absorbed the progress of European and American magic tool craftsmanship and combined it with their traditional technology to create magic tools that combine the advantages of both Europe and the United States. The quality of magic tools in Qingdafang is worthy of its annual membership fee of 1 million yuan, and the price of each magic tool placed in the Qingdafang counter is at least twice that of similar products. However, it is not entirely starting at a price of tens of millions. The prices of magic tools suitable for beginner to mid-level levels are generally maintained between 1 million and 3,005. As for high-level mages and above, they need to use another charging standard. Qingdafang Jingyan Store is its sales champion in the country, and its assets are also at the forefront of its branches nationwide, even overshadowing the Suzhou headquarters. The Jingyan store is located in an independent 7-story old Western-style building that has been well preserved and maintained in the urban area of Shanghai. It was established after the opening of Shanghai during the Qing dynasty. It has been 100 years since the destruction caused by the war was repaired during the Republic of China period. In terms of style, it is quite similar to the French manor-style architecture, which is different from the British pursuit of left-right symmetry in architectural style. Around the Western-style building is a large area of French wudong trees. From the inside to the outside, you can see a green landscape that is pleasing to the eye. What is displayed in the Jingyan store is only a sample of the same type of product, and the actual products sold are customized according to the style and needs of each different member. Therefore, when new members go to the store, Qingdafang will send a recorder to track and dig deeper into their needs. What I need is a magic tool that can assist high-level wind mages, allowing me to have stronger control and release magic more naturally. It should not be too large and should be lightweight to carry. After a pause, Zheluo said, remember, what I need is auxiliary-type magic tools, not magic tools. My magic tool slot is full. The middle-aged store manager, who was slightly overweight, showed a professional and confident smile. He reached out and lifted the work badge with his name written on it on his shirt, saying, "Duke, don't worry, we are professionals and will never make such a low-level mistake." Moreover, the store manager's tone began to salute as he thought of the person's name. "You were introduced by your military sect. He is our loyal and major customer, and he is highly respected by your military sect. You are also a remarkable mage. Being able to serve you and outstanding mages like your military sect has always been an honor for our Qingdafang. How dare we let down your trust with such a low-level mistake?" Zheluo nodded calmly, acknowledging the slightly chubby manager's words. He had heard more flattery than this, and such sweet words could no longer provide him with much emotional value and sense of identification. The Wei Peng manager mentioned that Gui Junmen is one of the few but extremely useful contacts of Zheluo in China, with the surname Gui and a single name of one character, responsible for procurement affairs related to coastal defense policies. Thanks to the recommendation of Guy, Zheluo was able to stand here and make his demands for magic weapons to the chubby manager. Originally, Zheluo did not want to use his relationship in China so early, but unfortunately, China does not recognize him as the Duke title. If he can't brush his face, he will have to find someone else. The chubby manager saw the great Ming Emperor Jiajing's telepathic message in Zheluo's hand and said, "Has the Duke also studied Ming history?" Zheluo raised his hand and looked at the biography of Jiajing in his hand, saying with a smile, "There is no research, it's just that I have my own admiration for Chinese culture and some celebrities." Emperor Jiajing of the Ming dynasty was a spiritual sage. Although his fame in the world was not particularly great, I believe he was definitely one of the top 10 masters in spiritual magic. I used to think that Greece was already the pinnacle of the spiritual realm, but it wasn't until I began to delve deeper into this land of China that I realized that I had finally let shallowness and arrogance blind my eyes and heart, to the point where I was so arrogant that I thought Europe was the best. The spiritual system, which we define as white magic, has developed its unique characteristics in the East, exclaimed Zheluo. The slightly chubby manager saw that Zheluo's expression was not as fake, and the smile on his face became even more sincere. No one didn't like his country to be recognized by others, especially since he was a high-ranking aristocrat from a foreign country. China's spiritual system did once shine no less than the holy land of white magic in Europe, but it has declined in the past century. Zheluo's words actually have a hint of praise in them. "Duke, you also know that our Qingdafang was granted the status of imperial merchant during the Jiajing period of the Ming dynasty. A large amount of tribute from various vassal countries to the Ming dynasty was given to us by the imperial family for crafting. Later, we went through the Qing and Ming dynasties, and even served various nobles throughout this dynasty. We may have handled even more good materials than the treasuries of some small countries. Based on the requirements you just raised, I have already matched the most suitable material for you in my mind." The slightly plump manager's face showed a confident and proud expression, and his face was maintained with a white and tender smile, like a moving white jade plate. "Oh, please go on," said Zheluo. "There is a top-quality Fengling jade produced from the core area of the Qinghai Tibet Plateau in the main store's collection, which also has an ice attribute attached to it. It is a rare treasure in a century. We can use the core part of this Fengling jade to create a pendant that can be carried at any time, or make it into a decoration and embed it on your watch," said the chubby manager as he looked at the unknown brand watch in Zheluo's hand. The watch presents a light tone and exquisite workmanship, which is not eye-catching when worn on the wrist. The slightly chubby manager noticed that the hands inside the watch have not moved since Zheluo arrived at Qingdafang. In Zheluo's identity, it must be an unknown magical tool. Upon hearing this, Zheluo politely declined, saying, "Let's make it into a pendant and use the remaining materials as decorations." "Well, remember to cross it," Zheluo instructed. "Okay, I understand." The chubby manager recorded Zheluo's requirements in a dedicated notebook. He is indeed a very professional person, at least very attentive, which makes people feel very comfortable. Zheluo, who was in a good mood, casually asked, when was the earliest time a magic weapon could be fired? We have all the materials we need in Qingdafang, but the magic tool master needs to make an appointment in advance because the materials used to make your magic tool are too expensive, so you must be a top-level magic tool master. As the slightly chubby manager thought of something, his face suddenly turned pale, and he no longer spoke fluently and confidently. Zheluo said with a hint of displeasure, when can we first schedule a suitable magic tool master? The manufacturing cycle of high-quality magic equipment is measured in months, and many excellent magic tool masters' orders are scheduled for 6 months or even a year later. The slightly chubby manager looked uneasy, biting his lower lip as if he was about to make a decision that goes against his ancestors. At present, there are almost no magic tool masters available in Shanghai, but some magic tool masters have been cooperating with us at Qingdafang for many years. After that, I can ask if it is possible to prioritize the production of your magic tool. Manager Weipeng's expression was dim as he spoke, even his voice lowered a bit. Zheluo nodded with an expression on his face and said, I need to use this magic tool in the Venice contest. I will pay you 80% of the total price as a deposit today. After the magic tool is played, you can directly air it to me. I will bear the freight and the remaining payment, including the processing fees of the magic tool master. Zheluo stared into the slightly chubby manager's eyes and said word by word, the only requirement is to be fast. Is that okay? The slightly chubby manager's eyes gradually lit up and he nodded heavily, quickly agreeing, no problem, Duke. We promise to finish the magic weapon for you as quickly as possible and deliver it to you as soon as possible. Upon hearing the assurance from Manager Weipeng, Zheluo nodded and smiled with satisfaction, saying, this is our first cooperation. According to our business custom in the UK, it is impossible to pay more than half of the payment as a deposit before seeing the goods. However, communication between people always goes through a stage of mutual exploration and understanding, and I am willing to be the one who pays first. Zheluo's statement of cutting in line with money is very grandiose, but it is not entirely beautiful, at least the following few sentences are completely true. Just like how Zheluo was willing to actively seek out Guy to help recommend the chubby manager and owe him a favor, from birth to maturity, they may only help each other a few times. As long as you have value, you don't need to be afraid of owing someone else a favor. What is the big deal for a chubby manager? If you're afraid of such a thing, why not become a wizard? Go to kindergarten where beautiful teachers are taking care of you. The chubby manager lifted the silver luxury eyeglass frame up with his index finger, and the lenses reflected a white light under the crystal chandelier. Because this is your first time cooperating with us, Qingdafang, and also the first European aristocrat to place an order at our Qingdafang Jing'an store. With my authority, I can offer you a 50% discount. As for the shipping cost and the cost of hiring a magician, delivering the product to customers' hands as soon as it is ready is our commitment to Qingdafang service, so you naturally don't need to worry about it. If you are really willing to help us, the chubby manager said, taking out a delicate business card from the collar of his suit and handing it to Zheluo with both hands, Duke, please do more promotion for our Qingdafang among your family and friends. Zheluo didn't expect that the demands of the chubby manager would be like this. He thought that the high commission was the biggest pursuit of professional managers like the chubby manager. But he clearly underestimated the ambition of the chubby manager, or rather the Qingdafang behind him. What they never wanted was a high-price deal with Giro, what they coveted from beginning to end was the upper echelons of Europe. 50% off, this can no longer be considered a discount, it's just a beautiful embellishment for free. Setting aside the cost of obtaining the top-quality wind spirit jade from Qingdafang, the cost of hiring a magic tool master alone is not cheap. It would be even more expensive to have the magic tool master join the production team to produce it. Qingdafang's sale of the magic weapon to Zheluo at a free price is naturally an ulterior motive, and the purpose of Weipeng, the manager, has already made it very clear. Zheluo reached out to take the business card and didn't say much. He just nodded at the chubby manager, which was considered a consensus. The slightly chubby manager's expression was so excited that he couldn't contain it. Compared to the small commission for selling magic weapons, the business of expanding into Europe made him even more excited. Someone in the main store had promised him that as long as he could open up the European market, he could become the general manager in Europe. The chubby manager suppressed his excitement and said, "Duke, why don't you take a stroll around our store first? I'll arrange for the transfer of materials for you." "Okay, are all the things in the store just samples?" Zheluo suddenly asked before the chubby manager left. The chubby manager hesitated as he left and turned around to explain, "The things in the store are indeed some samples for external display, but if the Duke is really interested, it's not impossible to sell them." Upon hearing the words, Zheluo nodded and didn't say anything more. The chubby manager then left and returned to his office to call and report the good news. After watching the slightly chubby manager's figure disappear from his sight, Zheluo stepped forward and headed straight for a booth. A certain voice in his mind was about to explode. "Xiaozhizi, hurry up for me, that thing can't be lost." The voice came from within Zheluo's contractual space, rough and unassuming, without any regard for the dignity of Zheluo as the contractual owner. Zheluo mocked in the summoner's unique channel for communicating with contract beasts, saying, "You are truly a worm who is interested in bronze vessels. You can eat anything. Xiaozhizi, I don't want to say anything to you right now, and even if I say it, you may not understand. That thing is good, but you humans have no eyes for it and even put it in the exhibition area for people to see. It's a waste." The contract beast didn't pay attention to Zheluo's mockery and continued to urge him to leave quickly. Standing in front of the exhibition area of the bronze cauldron again, Zheluo couldn't even understand where the bronze cauldron was and where it was mysterious. "Don't stare at your little eyes, you humans haven't evolved to perceive this kind of material yet." The voice in the contract space came again. "What exactly is this?" Zheluo complained, as the bug in his contract space kept bothering him but refused to tell him what it was. "This is a substance that can only be refined in the universe without a specific name. After being devoured by our Zerg race in the universe, it can have a significant physical strengthening effect." The worm in the contract space did not play any tricks and directly told Zheluo what he wanted to know. "Are you saying that the material inside this bronze cauldron comes from outside the sky?" Zheluo was suddenly surprised and didn't expect that anyone who came to China to buy a magic weapon would encounter this kind of extraterrestrial resource, and it had already been refined into the bronze cauldron. "How much cosmic material do you mean is inside this bronze cauldron?" asked Philo. "Not too much, barely enough for me to strengthen my body once." "Hurry up and get it out. If you can't, let me out and I'll take it myself." The insect's voice became noticeably irritable. It began to urge Zheluo after sensing the cosmic material in the Jingyan store of Qingdafang. After waiting for so long, it really became impatient. If it weren't for the constraints of Zheluo's contractual space, it would have jumped out on its own and absorbed the material inside the bronze cauldron. Zheluo sneered, "Insects are just insects, even if they have some power, they will only be abused." Bug Z is the first contracted beast of Zheluo, claiming to be the Earth Evil King. It was an extraterrestrial evil insect encountered by Zheluo during a trip to the United States for training. That is a newly discovered remains of an ancient terror beast. Zheluo discovered the Earth Evil Worm from a broken terror beast skeleton. At that time, the Earth Evil King was extremely weak and urgently needed a body. Zheluo's newly formed mid-level contract position was occupied by the Earth Evil Worm. Originally, the Earth Evil King intended to directly reside in the body of Zheluo, but due to some unexpected circumstances, he eventually entered the contract space that Zheluo had just opened up and became his own contract beast. Originally, this first contract position was left by Zheluo to the Holy Feather Griffin, which had been cultivated for a long time, but was unexpectedly intercepted by the Earth Evil King. It is precisely because of this that Zheluo has always been very dissatisfied with the Earth Evil King and occasionally makes sarcastic remarks. Anyone would be careful to guard against a highly intelligent creature like Zhaoshuyuan.com, who had malicious intentions towards him from the beginning. The Earth Evil King suddenly became angry and roared, "Zheluo, I am of royal lineage. You are just a small human, even if your status is not as high as mine. If it weren't for that damn contract, I would have torn you to pieces long ago. Zheluo doesn't care. The Earth Evil King has been fighting against heaven and earth in his contractual space for a while, but what can he do? Only by not letting go, it can't even come out of the contract space. I have experience dealing with this extraterrestrial evil insect, Zheluo. Just wait for it to vent its irritable emotions." Ignoring the frenzy of the evil insects, Zheluo raised his hand and gestured for a nearby salesperson to come over. "I want this cauldron, please help me move it." Zheluo pointed to the bronze cauldron inside the transparent isolation display cabinet. The salesperson's expression was, "Sir, these are all exhibits from our Kingdafang and are generally not sold to the public." Zheluo smiled and said, "It's okay now, it's a normal situation. Your manager has agreed to sell me a portion of the exhibits. Then I need to verify the situation with the manager first." "Sure, please hurry." After speaking, the sales lady quickly went to the manager's office. The sales lady returned soon and respectfully said, "Sir, I have verified the situation with our manager and he agrees to sell this exhibit to you. Do you think we need to help you transport it to where?" Zheluo told the sales girl the location of the hotel where the Guofu team stayed, and suddenly a phone call came in. The sound of the beeping bell was very eye-catching in the quiet Jing'an store. Zheluo expressionlessly took out his phone from his pocket and answered, "What's wrong? What are you saying?" Surprisingly lost. Chapter 3. First Encounter with Mo Fan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, the sacred wings of a griffin glide across the sky like silver blades, and the suction generated by its high-speed movement rolls up the surrounding space. The Kingdafang Jing'an store is not far from the Mingzhu Academy, where the China Pavilion is located. It can be reached at the speed of a griffin in no more than 10 minutes. The remaining time is used to report the summoning beast's travel and griffin's airspace flight qualifications to the Shanghai Summoning Beast Regulatory Agency. The full name of a griffin is the Holy Feather Griffin, known as the Royal Family of Griffins. The entire Holy Feather Griffin race has lived for generations in the snowy wilderness on the highest peak of the Alps, Mont Blanc. It is a bamboo horse beast that Zheluo has known and agreed to be each other's angels since childhood. The Holy Feather Griffin has a gentle temperament and does not like to kill, which is why the population has been living on the summit of Mont Blanc, far from right and wrong, for generations. But don't think that the Holy Feather Griffin is easy to bully. On the contrary, most people who can maintain their own racial stability and peace are not good people, at least not weak and deceitful. The Holy Feather Griffin is the most powerful non-human species in the Western Alps, and they, who love peace, have no extra ambition except to occupy the most fertile areas of the snowfield and reproduce. Otherwise, with the strength of the Holy Feather Griffin tribe, not to mention the entire Western Alps, there would be no problem unifying the Alps within France. The Holy Feather Griffin tribe is known to have more than one great monarch, and those who have seen the wisdom and strength of the Holy Feather Griffin believe that it is a demon noble species that can rival the Medusa race in Africa. However, it lacks the murderous name of the Medusa race, to the extent that most people have not heard of them. Zheluo and the little feather griffin met when his father took him to wait for Mont Blanc. At the time, Zheluo, who was still a bare child, got lost on the mountain due to his curiosity and playfulness, and met the little feather griffin who also came out to play. In the end, the passing little feather griffin took him to find his father. One person, one eagle formed a deep friendship like this, which left the father who came out with Zheluo confused. He didn't expect to take his son out to play and determine his future magic department on his own, even finding contract beasts. Under the influence of Zheluo's mother, the legend of Zheluo going out to tame the holy feather griffin quickly spread everywhere, to the extent that for a period of time, Zheluo was reluctant to go out, and whenever he met, he asked him if the legend was true. Fortunately, time can always make anything dull. Although the legend of the Griffin Knight Zheluo is still circulating in the martial arts world a year later, not many people have mentioned it. It has been 13 years since we first met, and Zheluo has transformed from a little boy wearing a small suit and leather shoes to a young and handsome high-level mage who is only 1.8 meters tall. The little griffin has also gone from being only one size older than Zheluo's furry bun to becoming the youngest and most combat-capable leader-level young griffin in the tribe. These childhood friends eventually reached their peak among their peers and met again. Zheluo cherishes this relationship very much. Friendship between people is rare, but unlike other creatures, it may only take one meeting to leave an indelible mark in his heart. Zheluo once thought about why he was so close to the holy feather griffin that he became familiar at first sight. Now he can confidently say, "Because we are equally excellent." Excellent people always attract each other, and the same goes for excellent souls. Nowadays, excellent people stand on the back of excellent griffins with both hands, looking unsightly as they head towards a blue steel building with a circular exterior and a large opening on top. The holy feather griffin's physique is about the size of a large passenger plane, and humans are so small that they are barely visible in front of such a massive beast. The sudden flight of such an aerial giant over the city will inevitably cause panic among the citizens, and most people living in the city have never seen such a monster. The flight permit for animal training in China is very strict, but the holy feather griffin has a much stronger binding force as a contracted beast than a trained beast. In addition, Zheluo has contacted the local hunter alliance in Shanghai, and it is not a problem to obtain a temporary flying qualification as a hunter master. The holy feather griffin's wings spread wide and slowly descended into the air. Its huge claws stepped on the top of the circular national pavilion, and the aura of a commanding creature, accompanied by the pressure of the giant's high-altitude descent, fiercely oppressed the people inside the pavilion. "Sleeping trough, what is this horse-treading thing?" Someone inside the pavilion exclaimed in shock. Hilbert shouted with both hands blocking his face, "The captain is here. It's our captain's griffin." Eileen, on the other hand, had to calm down a lot. At some point, she had already pulled out an umbrella. Obviously, she had experienced such a scene before. A somewhat handsome Chinese person who was commonly spoken to by Eileen had a big mouth. He had just heard Hilbert's words. "Lie down, this griffin is at least a great commander." A figure with blue wings leaped from the back of the holy feather griffin and slowly landed on the ground. Philo looked at the crowd of the British government team and asked, "Gentlemen, can anyone introduce me to the current situation?" Irene pointed at Jiro and said to the Chinese man beside her, "Mo Fan, he is the captain of our British government team, Jiro." Later, Eileen introduced to Zheluo, "Zheluo, this is Mo Fan, a member of the Chinese embassy guard. He and his team work together to defeat us and defend the honor of our country's embassy." Zheluo stepped forward and shook hands with Mo Fan, saying, "Hello Mo Fan, nice to meet you." Mo Fan also reached out and said, "Hello Zheluo, it's nice to meet you too." After being polite, Mo Fan turned his head and said to the members of the British government team, "You all speak good Mandarin." Irene smiled and said, "Language exchange is a prerequisite for friendship between the two countries. Don't you also speak English very well?" Mo Fan rubbed his head and laughed, "That's right, I wish the friendship between China and the UK will last forever." Mo Fan felt a bit uncertain in his heart. The one lying in the slot just now was the high-level magic wing of the wind system, and if he wasn't blind, he should have four wings. This is a magical effect that can only be achieved by reaching the second level of the wind level in cultivation. The giant griffin above his head, which has not yet disappeared, is at least at the level of the Grand Commander. From a sense of oppression, its strength is estimated to be much stronger than the giant lizard and pseudo-dragon he once encountered. Although this British captain looks quite polite, he is not unfamiliar with that kind of sweet-mouthed and bellied sword. If Mo Fan were to play rascal like the woman from the Egyptian government team, just thinking about this strength would make his scalp tingle. Zheluo seemed to feel Mo Fan's thoughts and smiled kindly at him, turning his head to look at Eileen. Xiao Gong didn't look at him and turned his head to look at the dust in the air. Zheluo frowned and looked at a member of the team who had a very imposing appearance. Mo Fan had also noticed this person before. Well, how do you put it? In Chinese terms, this person's appearance is typical of an eagle looking at the wolf, with a tall eagle-hooked nose of 1.93 meters. This height makes Mo Fan, who is not low in height, feel a bit embarrassed. What did these Europeans grow up on? Sistun calmly said, Irene and the Chinese embassy team engaged in a 3-on-3 battle as agreed, and in the end, only Irene and Mo Fan were left. Irene surrendered in order not to expose her strength too much. Sistun's words were very concise and clear, and there was no childish behavior of adding fuel and vinegar just to make his captain vent his anger, which is also why Zheluo would ask Sistun. If there is anyone in the entire government team who can reassure Zheluo the most, it is Sistun. He is like a born general, always calm and reliable, just like his deep black navy uniform. Zheluo smiled and said to Mo Fan, congratulations to your Chinese friends. Every victory is God's affirmation of our efforts. You have proven yourself with your strength, and we look forward to meeting again in Venice. Mo Fan breathed a sigh of relief. It was better not to come and play, as it seemed that the British were still more shameful than the Egyptians. With a smile on his face, he politely said, looking forward to meeting us in the final in Venice. Since the challenge on our side in China is over, we still have other training arrangements, so we can't be too accommodating. Without much courtesy, Zheluo directly said what he wanted to leave. Oh my, so fast. I still owe Eileen a meal without treating her, Mo Fan exclaimed in surprise. He didn't expect the British team to be so swift after the game ended without taking a break. Zheluo looked aside and did not know what she was looking at. Irene said meaningfully, if you want to, we can go to India next. You can find FedEx to deliver the goods to Cartlet, so that she can have delicious Chinese food in India, and avoid her roast about Indian food. Standing on the side, Eileen, who was filled with air, didn't expect to pull it onto herself. She looked at Zheluo with dissatisfaction from Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Mo Fan was also surprised. He didn't expect that Eileen, a tall, thin, fair-skinned, beautiful girl with long legs, would also be a foodie. The key was that her breasts could still be so grand. If only her own snow could be as huge as hers. Mo Fan couldn't help but swallow his saliva. The scene was so beautiful that he felt so happy that he suffocated. Quickly, Zheluo left with his own team members, and Mo Fan eventually fulfilled his promise to pack 2 servings of crayfish for Eileen. After teaching Eileen how to eat, Mo Fan watched them board the plane, and also saw them off with the battle against Eileen and others, including the herdsman Jiao. Mu Nujio held her phone and said with a stern expression, Mo Fan, we are afraid we will have trouble in this round of government disputes. Oh, how do you say it? Mo Fan couldn't understand. He knew that Mu Nujiao's temperament was not a person who acted aimlessly, so there must be her reasons for saying so. I just checked on the internet and found out that Zheluo has a good reputation in Europe and America, known as the strongest magical genius in Britain, said the shepherd in a deep voice. Oh, then I'm still the strongest magical genius in our Mingzhu, Mo Fan casually said. Compared to Zheluo, the one he wants to catch up with the most now is Mu Ningxue. She has been going to the Tian Shan Mountains to experience for a while, and I don't know if she's hungry or thin. Hey, could you be serious? This is the recognized strongest magical genius among tens of millions of people. Mu Nujio couldn't help but say, as Mo Fan's heart can sometimes be so big that it's speechless. I know now. I am still the strongest magical genius selected from 1.4 billion people. Mo Fan was very confident, and he never feared anything in his life. Mu Nujio rolled her beautiful white eyes and ignored this arrogant maniac, turning around and leaving. Chapter 4. Kalikat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. The sea breeze in the Indian Ocean is so hot that it can melt bones and blood on the spot, so most people living on the Indian continent have darker skin. This is partly due to sunlight and partly due to the warm Indian Ocean currents. The warm ocean naturally has a unique group of marine creatures, and the swordfish is a representative of sea monsters living in India, similar to sea monkey monsters in Chinese waters but stronger. The head of the swordfish has a sword thorn that is nearly half a meter long, and each impact can easily pierce a wound the size of a bowl. Although the sword thorn does not contain lethal toxins, it is normal for it to carry some marine bacteria and microorganisms. Ordinary people who are pierced by swords and fish can basically be declared hopeless. Even highly skilled mages who cannot receive timely treatment when their bodies are pierced are at risk of death. There are numerous sea monster populations living in the Indian Ocean, but no true racial leader has unified the entire swordfish population into a true sea monster tribe, occupying a place in the boundless ocean. Without a unified leader, it means that this race can only be ruled by various more powerful sea demon races in a scattered sand pattern, fighting against its own compatriots on the battlefield under different forces. Most swordfish have low bloodline and can only be slave-level sea monsters for their entire lives, unable to advance, and have no innate water control magic. The only thing that has attack power is their own swordfish. The cycle from birth to death of a swordfish generally does not exceed 2.5 years, and most of them will naturally die within 6 months to a year. It is a very short-lived species in the ocean. If we consider the world nurturing a certain organism as an investment, then swordfish is undoubtedly the type of investment product with low cost and quick results. For the magical world itself, measured in billions of time units, even the longest-lasting 2.5 years are still as if it has no roots. The body of the swordfish will give a positive feedback to this world after its death. The annual death of a large number of swordfish provides a huge source of low-cost and high-quality fishery resources for nearby coastal cities over a period of 1 year. Swordfish may not be considered a powerful species among sea monsters, but their meat is still considered delicious and nutritious for most humans. A large and relatively low-cost supply of goods and a huge demand for meat products are matched together, which gives coastal cities in the Indian Ocean a huge business opportunity. A large number of coastal cities in the Indian Ocean have relied on fishing resources for long-term trading, which has been going on for thousands of years. For thousands of years, people who rely on this swordfish industry chain to make a living have reached a consensus. Individual mages and groups of mages responsible for fishing swordfish resources ashore from the Indian Ocean, as well as a small number of ordinary fishermen who use their big heads to snatch food from other sea monsters at the risk of their lives. Naturally, no one will have any objection to using their big heads. The distributors responsible for transporting and selling processed and packaged fish products in major coastal cities in the Indian Ocean receive a share of the profits, while the small workshops and retailers that process and package fish products are naturally allocated the smallest profits. For thousands of years, humans living in the Indian Ocean have explored the most suitable profit distribution mechanism. Whenever this designed set of benefits is imbalanced, it means that India and other countries along the Indian Ocean coast may face a huge disaster. There are two types of economic products that can predict a country's trend. One is swordpod, and the other is onion and spice products produced and sold in inland India. The large-scale chaos caused by inland demons and sea monsters will lead to the paralysis and inefficiency of the transportation industry. The direct impact of previous demon disasters on the people is reflected in the rise in prices of various basic survival materials. This unstable food price is fatal for a large number of civilians who are already struggling on the poverty line. Cities are captured by demons, and they are killed and eaten by demons. Transportation lines are blocked by demons, and they will starve to death due to rising food prices and no money to purchase. For thousands of years, suffering has always favored the people living on this land, but fortunately, the rapid development of coastal cities since modern times has broken the traditional workshop-style fishing methods. The catch of a large-scale fishing boat going out to sea at once may be the annual output of a fisherman who used to fish on a family basis. In this process, coastal port cities play an indispensable role in providing supply and cultivation for ships entering and exiting the sea, as well as serving as production and sales locations for products. This is a positive cycle pattern, but only limited to coastal port cities in India. Under the dividends of the times, India's port cities have experienced significant development over the past few decades. One of the impacts of the rapid and barbaric development of cities is naturally the rapid widening of the wealth gap, and the relationships between people have become distinct due to wealth. Kalikat is such a city, built along the city's CBD and affluent areas around the port, facing the slums composed of a large number of shantytowns, showcasing the cruel side of the world in front of people. On the sea surface, more than 10 kilometers away from Kalikat port, Hilbert, naked and robust, flexibly dodged the attacks of swordfish. Seizing the gap where two swordfish took turns attacking, Hilbert raised his hand and whipped dozens of bright purple arcs across the entire body of the swordfish, causing it to lose consciousness. Several arcs were transmitted along the seawater to the swordfish that had previously attacked Hilbert, and the power of the arc was once again strengthened in the ocean. With just a few electric arc whips, the swordfish was whipped open, and blood droplets flowed out of its body, sinking into the sea. Hilbert breathed a long sigh of relief and wiped the sweat beads on his forehead, saying, "Finally solved it." Zheluo looked at the time and said, "Not bad. This time the reaction speed is faster than last time, and every spell cast is just right. Let's end this training and continue tomorrow." Upon hearing this, not only the trained Hilbert, but also the other members of the team cheered. Irene, on the distant dining table, quietly and politely ate the crayfish given to her by Mo Fan with her transparent plastic hands. Zheluo didn't bother with this small public move that wanted to preserve his strength. The Chinese team Mo Fan's strength was not weak, and there was also a senior mage named Mu Nujio who was already a high-level mage and couldn't release high-level magic. Even if Eileen insisted on fighting, she might not necessarily lose, but in that situation, even winning would not be worth the loss. Hilbert complained, "What kind of demon is Captain going to deal with in this training mission? He even requires me to train 3 days in advance. You haven't prepared any traps for me, have you?" These past few days, Zheluo has been training with Hilbert every day, causing him to be dissatisfied but unable to cooperate. Because he lost the challenge, Hilbert naturally did not believe that there must be a reason behind it, otherwise Zheluo would not be able to be the captain of this country. The training of the British national team is not only determined by the national mentorship team, but also by the overall planning and arrangement of various matters during the training. This requires taking on enormous responsibility, and the rewards will also be the greatest. The resources rewarded by senior management are not a big gain, and the work experience honed on the way here is what truly benefits people for a lifetime. Zheluo didn't give a direct answer but said, "This experience requires you to reach a higher level of thunder cultivation, so practice well." Hilbert widened his eyes and shouted, "Captain, you're not mistaken. Isn't the experience starting the day after tomorrow? Do you want me to break through in 1 day?" Zheluo shook his hand and used an airflow to disperse a few saliva particles that almost sprayed on his face. He said expressionlessly, "That's right, so rest well today and strive to break through the high-level thunder series tomorrow. Your cultivation has been stagnant long enough." Hilbert met Zheluo's cold eyes and said with a stiff face, "I have always suppressed my cultivation at the peak of the middle level of the Thunder series. I intended to break through only when the Thunder series nebula was completely completed." Zheluo interrupted him directly and said, I know that I have a general understanding of the cultivation of each team member. Based on my judgment, your Thunder Nebula should be very close to completion. It happens that you will use the Star River vein to break through tomorrow. When the time comes, I will be your companion to help you quickly familiarize yourself with new realms and exercise your lightning control, and try my best to proficiently release high-level lightning magic after this Indian experience. Hilbert shook his head and smiled bitterly without any further objection. Time was so tight that he probably couldn't sleep again today. Zheluo saw his bitter-gourd face and snorted coldly, don't feel aggrieved. This experience was agreed upon by the Great Tutor Group, the Indian Magic Association, and the Indian Government Committee. The offer from India is very good, and you should perform well in this experience. As long as you perform well, I will apply for a Thunder-type Soul Seed for you after it is over. As soon as the word Soul Seed appeared, the few people in the team who were just gloating couldn't calm down in an instant. Weston envied and shouted, Captain, give me a chance, I will definitely perform well. He has been breaking through advanced levels of fire for some time now, and he is not without his heart in the fire soul type. However, high-quality fire-type soul seeds will not circulate in the market at all, but only in the form of resource exchange among major forces. Due to the lack of high-quality natural soul seeds, Weston's Fire-Earth Dual Series still uses the spirit seeds equipped in the mid-level, and the power increase of more than twice the power of the spirit seeds is gradually unable to keep up with high-level battles. He can rank in the top 3 of the national government team in terms of strength. Now that there is such an opportunity, how can Weston not strive for it? Hilbert was also anxious. How could he let this undelivered soul seed fly? He widened his eyes and said, Captain, I don't need to rest anymore. Please whip me hard. Don't treat me like a person at all. I must break through the high-level before tomorrow night. Zheluo understood Weston's feelings and gently comforted him, saying, this experience is prepared for Hilbert and his destructive power needs to be rapidly improved. I will have arrangements for your experience that will not be worse than Hilbert's. Weston didn't want to say anything more after receiving the promise, and the other team members also asked Zheluo about their experience. Each training session of the British government team is carefully prepared for a single player, and each resource and training session is highly focused on the same player. Of course, this requires that person to be able to complete the training test. The people who have already undergone and completed their training now are Sistun and Eileen, and their strength is also among the top in the team. Basically maintaining a stable position in the top 3 of the team, on the contrary, the vice-captain of Weston, although strong in strength, has not undergone any tests since the start of his training in the national government. For this reason, Weston was also secretly anxious, which led to the scene of fighting for the opportunity to experience just now. Jiro also understood this and tried his best to appease him. Unlike several team members who were knocked unconscious by the soul seed, Eileen, who was eating crayfish, blinked her precious golden eyes and keenly realized the problem. Is there anything that the Indian side cannot do to hand over to us students? Irene's words were like a bucket of cold water waking up the Hilbert and his companions who had been knocked unconscious by abundant resources. Yes, the virtue of Indians not being able to take advantage of it is to suffer losses. What kind of thing would make them willing to offer a soul seed level reward? Feeling the inquisitive gaze of the team members around him, Zheluo looked at Eileen helplessly. How could this little Gongju have used his brain to get against him? This experience is not about dealing with the local demon tribe in India and collecting precious resources anymore, it's just about dealing with a notorious bandit from this generation in South Asia. The thief is an old and cunning high-level mage. Several arrests were organized in India and he was eventually allowed to escape. As we arrived in India, we entrusted this matter to us. Irene's thin lips, which were red and smooth due to eating crayfish, curled up with a mocking smile and said, Zheluo, your mouth is like Pinocchio alive. This kind of child-teasing words can be said so easily and seriously. It's a pity that you didn't run for parliament and instead came to the national government team. Chapter 5. Shame of the National Government. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, the rest of the team are waiting for Eileen to speak up and inquire. They don't have the courage to directly confront the big boss Zheluo, but Eileen does. Not only that, but it's also very big. The most interesting thing for Eileen in her life of over 20 years is to hate Jiro. You can't imagine what kind of pleasure it was. Eileen often gets lost in it and doesn't want to extricate herself. Fortunately, most of the time she always knew the right balance, just jumping onto a beautiful waltz at the edge of Zheluo's endurance limit, but taking half a step from the limit gave each other a step to maintain their dignity. This sometimes makes Zheluo unable to find a reason to get angry. After all, being true to a lady is not a gentleman's demeanor, nor should it be a noble's mind. So the two of them have developed a tacit understanding over the past 20 years. When one person gains the upper hand, they will not maintain a tough stance next time, in order to maintain each other's face. However, any tacit understanding always has an insurmountable red line, and the insurmountable red line between Philo and Eileen is either a lie or a deception towards each other. Irene's golden eyes were like swords, and even the crayfish in her hand was no longer fragrant. Her beautiful and charming peach blossom look became a bit cold and hard in this cold aura. Yugong is the Grand Duke of England, the current Crown Prince, and the future heir to the throne. She does not allow anyone to deceive herself with such clumsy lies. As a woman, she does not like deception from the opposite sex, especially when the opposite sex is a green-headed Duke of Oxford. Zheluo understood from the situation that not providing a reasonable explanation today would damage the authority of his captain. While using the captain's authority recklessly may temporarily suppress disputes, it is not a good solution to the problem, but it will actually affect the unity within the team. Although the team members may not say much, they will inevitably accumulate dissatisfaction and doubts in their hearts. This dissatisfaction will become a seed deeply buried in people's hearts. Over time, when this seed sprouts, it will be difficult to carry the national government team. The mission objective is named Jomo, a veteran high-level mage who specializes in earth, minor in summoning, and minor in fire. Both the Earth and Fire series have soul seeds with attached effects, and they are proficient in mastering the realm. The Summoning series has also gathered 2 contract beasts, and it is said that both have reached the commander level. Jomo himself has been recorded as the highest number of high-level mages in India who have killed commander-level demons in the past century. According to statistical agencies hired by the Indian military, his cultivation is likely to be approaching the super level. Hiss, hiss. A few gasping sounds sounded, and sure enough, Hilbert's eyes were wide open, almost able to stuff an egg in. Shad was also startled. Both contract beasts were at the level of commanders, and this configuration was enough to fight a small town. The mentor asked us to surround such a high-level cultivator, but didn't he really receive subsidies from other countries to send us to death? Muwen sent out a soul torture. Killing numerous leader-level demons is still wanted, and foreign government teams are needed for arrest and execution. What is the identity of this Jomo? Irene calmly said. Even if mages from most countries in the world make mistakes, they can mostly achieve forgiveness by serving the local area and killing enough demons. What needs to be dealt with so painstakingly is either a sacrifice of some kind of struggle, or a truly unforgivable sin. Otherwise, a mage with a dual soul cultivation level close to the super level will not be easily executed. Zheluo sighed and said, "You always speak like this." Before Zheluo could finish speaking, Aaron interrupted, "Just hit the nail on the head, talk about that Jomo." The wanted charge for Jomo is rape and murder of a young girl. Originally, such a crime would have been held against him for a few years at most, but he also had a special identity that made this case more complicated. Zheluo took a deep breath and said, He is the former captain of the Indian government team who was voted by the previous Indian government committee and nominated for support by the Speaker of the Indian Magic Association. Hilbert and Shad were furious when they heard Zheluo mention that Jomo had raped and killed a young girl, and now they are even more furious when they hear the inside story. So because of his identity, even if he makes such a big mistake, he still doesn't need to pay any price. The hot-tempered Weston had already clenched his fist, and Philo had no doubt that he dared to go out and fight with Joe now, but he himself would be killed. Yes, neither is it, said Zheluo inexplicably. In addition to his strong personal strength, Jomo also has a special identity as the only Dalit-born member and captain of the Indian government since the start of the World University War. He was once considered a key figure in eliminating social inequality in India, but he ultimately self-destructed. The girl who was raped and killed by Jomo was the only daughter of her family. Her family has been engaged in business activities for generations, and she is well-behaved, sensible, and has excellent academic performance. Although she is not a member of the wizarding family, she is also a respectable and harmonious member of the family. Shortly after being humiliated and killed by Jomo during the rape, her mother went crazy. After burying her daughter, her father sold his family property and took his wife to Greece to find a way to cure her. Once the incident was exposed, it caused a sensation in the entire Indian society, and criticism and insults towards the Dalits once again became the mainstream voice of society. Due to the identity of the Jomodalit people and the face of the Speaker of the Indian Magic Association, the Indian side has always been difficult to deal with Jomodalit. Now, with the help of an outsider from the British government team, they have successfully taken Jomodalit back to the legal trial. Irene still frowned, which sounded like an ordinary story of a servant becoming a master and becoming even more cruel than the master, but she still felt that something was not right. Seeing that Eileen was no longer a demon Philo, he said to Hilbert, "I asked you to speed up and break through the high-level Thunder series to prepare for the arrest of Jomo. Jomo is a high-level mage majoring in Earth series. Most of the magic I practice does not have direct destructive power, so this time I can only play a role in restraining and attracting firepower. We have had a lot of experience fighting demons before, but it's our first time fighting such a highly cultivated mage. I hope each of us can do our best not to neglect our experience just because it's not our own. I have said that we are a team and I don't want anyone here to be injured or killed, understand? Yes. 10-inch The city center and most bustling area of Kalikat is naturally the location of the port, which is a gathering place for high-end office buildings and apartments, and a side of India's embrace of modern society. And across from the bustling center lies the most authentic and least desirable reality of Indian society that cannot be concealed. Slums. The transitional zone between the slums and the city center is the community where the middle class lives, and their daily lives and work are dependent on the elites of the wealthy areas. They are a group that parasitizes on the back of the bustling city and can barely maintain their dignity. The slums are interconnected, and most of the houses inside are built with earth, stone, bricks, and tiles. In daily life, they can barely be used to shelter from wind and rain, and sleeping at night may be difficult. A man with waxy yellow skin but no apparent thinness walks in a maze-like ant-hole slum, his long neglected face covered in stubble and wearing simple Indian peasant clothing, typical of rural Indians working in cities. There are naturally no serious shops in the slums. Most of them are rural houses with 2 tables, and products placed on the tables are considered shops. Most of the time, it's just laying a black cotton cloth on narrow streets and alleys that doesn't show the era, and selling vegetable baskets on the cloth. The place where men live is a residential area specifically rented to outsiders for work, and local landlords make a living by renting out self-built houses and setting up stalls in slums. In the past, this village was quite lively, and women would sell fine white sand extracted from the coast to wealthy people in the city to earn living expenses. This would be their time to return home after selling the white sand. The children were running in groups on the road, and occasionally a mischievous little ghost would steal an apple to fill their stomachs while the vendor was not paying attention. After taking a few bites, they would casually throw it onto the ground, becoming one of the sources of the foul odor in the slums. But today the village was particularly quiet, with no one walking on the street. Apart from the whistling sound left by the wind, there was hardly anyone else's voice heard. The man squinted his black and white pupils, revealing a glimmer of light, completely different from an assembly line worker who had just finished work after working all night on a night shift. Proficiently passing through narrow and complex intersections, the man arrived at a cement-cast bungalow and took the pre-ordered cigar after placing 30,000 rupees in a wooden table cabinet. The owner of this shop is a smuggler, and what men need in their daily lives is obtained through trading with him. The quality is much better than that produced domestically in India, but it is also expensive, but the advantage is that there are no import tariffs, which makes it affordable for men to consume at present. The man took out a cigar and sucked deeply into his mouth without lighting it. The red spark at the cigarette end lit up and burned. After spitting out a large mouthful of white smoke, the man walked non-stop into the alley again, his waxy yellow skin blending well with the surrounding dilapidated walls. Two blue wind blades rolled up from the left and right sides, attempting to cut the man into pieces. The upper half of the room that had been rolled over along the way was cut off by the wind blades and turned into a roofless room. The collision of two wind blades and the explosion generated a storm that crushed the surrounding 100-meter brick houses into pieces, leaving no trace of the man in place. Zheluo stood on the top of a bungalow, gazing at the center of the explosion. The scope of the Wind King's realm was expanded to its maximum, constantly mobilizing the surrounding wind elements to search for the traces of men. Finally, at the edge of the explosion center, a field where wind elements could not penetrate appeared. Behind the vibration, 4 pairs of blue wings rose up and waved their hands forward vigorously. The forked shape formed by 2 wind blades slashed towards the area where the Wind King's realm could not penetrate. As they flew towards the man, the 2 wind blades constantly changed in size, reaching several tens of meters. This time, their power was greater than the just 2 wind blades. The ground was directly cut into 2 deep valleys, and the wind and waves that rolled up after the 100-meter wind blade landed directly destroyed all the surrounding buildings. Bang, bang, bang. A huge black-brown rock snake tore open the ground and quickly bit towards the location where Zheluo was. The rock snake opened its mouth and was able to swallow a classroom in one bite. Zheluo's originally standing bungalow was directly crushed by the huge body of the rock snake. Zheluo's wings behind him flashed and turned into a blue light and shadow, moving away from the position he had just taken. In the moment he dodged, his previously floating position was fiercely bitten by the huge mouth of the rock snake. However, if Zheluo hesitated for a second, he would already have 2 bodies. Zhaozhuiyuan.com. The man stood on top of the rock snake with his arms clasped around his chest. At this moment, both of them stood at a high place, gazing at each other. Their green and pure black eyes met, and both of them understood each other's thoughts. A huge rock spike, several tens of meters wide, suddenly pierced out from the ground under Zheluo's feet, and Zheluo dodged once again, turning into a green light. The attack and defense of both sides changed with just one phase, with huge rock spikes constantly protruding from the ground and rock snakes strangling Zheluo in the air. The man still hugged his chest with both hands, obviously not paying attention to Zheluo, a young man who had just become a high-end and second-level fan. Suddenly, it seemed like he had sensed a change in the man's expression. A wave of light blades turned into fine and dense raindrops and shot straight at him. The huge rock snake had no choice but to stop strangling Zheluo and use its body to block the penetrating light rain. Hilbert's light-piercing power is astonishing, with each wave of light being a sharp thorn that can pierce the body of the rock snake. Under such a dense light rain, the huge rock snake was shattered into 2 pieces. At the moment when the magic of the rock snake was destroyed and the man had no leverage in the air, 4 pairs of blue wings continued to expand and transform into 4 demon-killing swords, which swung towards the man again from 4 different directions. Before the remaining body of the rock snake could land, its 4 demon-like wings arrived first. The body of the rock snake, which had already been shattered in half by the light-falling Manzhang, was suddenly cut into countless pieces and fell to the ground. The feathered sword, which could cut open the giant rock, did not cut open the man's body. The feathered sword slid over the man's body as if it had cut through some hard object, making a hissing and piercing friction sound, but failed to cut off even a single strand of hair from the man. After landing on the ground, the man stood up and spoke for the first time. No need to test it. How many of you still have to shout out all at once? Chapter 6. The Nationalist Army's Fierce Battle with Jomo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, the voice of a waxy yellow man or Jomo is calm and clear. If you hear such a voice in a high-end supermarket, people will think that he must be a cultured gentleman. But the reality is that Jomo is wearing a pair of yellowed white sneakers, and he doesn't know which farmer he bought the clothes from. Although there is no odor, they don't look neat. The black beard, which had not been trimmed for a long time, grew wildly on the upper lip, lower jaw, and cheeks. At first glance, it seemed like a primitive person without leg hair had been resurrected. The cleanest part of Jomo's body is probably his eyes, which exude a calm and indifferent attitude towards everything. Even if he knew he was surrounded by multiple people, he wouldn't feel any panic or anger. He knew that this day would come sooner or later, but it just came today. They actually brought a few children to deal with me this time, hoping that I would be caught by you intentionally because I couldn't bear to hurt the children. Jomo said these words in a voice without any emotion, making it difficult to hear whether he was mocking or just stating the facts. Hilbert could never listen to ridicule as he raised his hand and the purple arc flickered. The purple arc pulled countless lightning arcs and turned them into dense grid cages, pressing towards Jomo. Hilbert's Ray series completed nebulization yesterday and the Milky Way officially entered a higher level, bringing not only an increase in the number of magical powers but also a qualitative change in control for Hilbert. The light system, which I majored in, has been at a higher level for a long time, and I am no longer unfamiliar with the control of Hilbert. Previously, due to limitations in cultivation, the Thunder series has now surpassed higher levels. The stagnant Thunder series has broken through the shackles of cultivation and is no longer bound like a fish entering the sea. Of course, all of this is just Herbert's statement. The real situation is that after breaking through the high level of the Thunder series yesterday, Herbert was caught and beaten up by Zheluo, making it impossible for every drop of magic energy on his body to squeeze out. Even the magic power was restored overnight by Muwen using a special magic tool, otherwise if Hilbert came today, he would have been dragging his feet. Faced with the overwhelming power grid cage, Jomo didn't dodge and didn't even give Hilbert an extra glance. The gray-brown rock ash climbed onto Jomo's muscular body, forming a rock armor gray coat that perfectly fitted his body curves. In the restraint relationship of various elemental magic, the Thunder type is the magic type that stands at the top, and there are almost no skills in the same level that can clearly restrain Thunder type magic. Therefore, the Thunder type is known as the leader of elements. But this relationship is obviously not constant, as an unimaginable current leaps through the dense mine net cage, yet such a high voltage of current cannot penetrate even half of Jomo's rock armor and gray clothes. The explosive destructive power and terrifying penetration of the Thunder element hit higher levels of Earth's power, like a 5.56 mm gun hitting bulletproof glass without any effect. The gray-brown rock armor and gray coat, like an bottomless black hole, absorbed the lightning arc that whipped Jomo's body until the flowing lightning in the entire power grid cage disappeared completely. The rock armor and gray coat did not show any obvious breakage, but the color of the entire close-fitting armor noticeably faded. Hilbert was unwilling to let the golden constellation reappear, with countless golden radiances swirling around him as arrows. Light magic will undergo its first qualitative transformation after a mage reaches a higher level of cultivation. The higher level light falling Manzhang will possess true destructive power, rather than just being used for transmitting signals and defense. Elementary time magic can only serve as lighting magic and transmitting signals, which is also the reason why light magic was not loved in the early stages. The return cycle is too long and requires at least reaching the mid-level to have a certain degree of irreplaceability, unlike water systems. At least in the early stages, there is a highly scarce attributive defense, which mages have. After reaching the mid-level, they will also have manageable destructive power. After becoming a mid-level mage, the mage's magical energy greatly increased. They were able to condense a large amount of light-based magical energy and release magical effects with objects by consuming it, achieving the initial transformation of emptiness into reality that was already present in other early stages of magic. After reaching a higher level, light mages are able to surprise themselves with their control over magic energy in elements. Light magic can finally transform light elements into entities in a timely manner without consuming a large amount of magic energy. The high difficulty of transforming light elements into reality means that it must have impressive power. Since its advanced stage, the light system has achieved a great transformation and has become one of the most diverse and destructive magic systems among all magic systems. After the golden light arrow solidifies, it has gained quality and naturally does not have the speed of virtual light. After enduring a lightning-type skill with power close to high-level magic once, the rock armor gray coat remains strong, and only a few cracks are left under the pouring rain of arrows. A beam of light arrows flew from Hilbert's side onto Jomo's armor, taking only about a second. In an instant, beams of golden light and shadow transformed into a burst of golden rain, continuously attacking Jomo's impeccable armor. Jomo's not-so-strong and tall body was completely submerged in the erosion of light and rain. This powerful blow, like the divine power of a celestial being descending to sweep away the impurities of the world, had reached the level of injuring a leader-level demon. Even the nearby Zheluo looked at it with disdain, but he didn't expect that Hilbert would still hide this trick. If he had used it in China, he probably wouldn't have lost so badly, enough to save face for him and the Nationalist team. Such exquisite control and sustained release of high-level magic require an immense amount of mental power, making an experienced high-level mage feel uncomfortable and dizzy. Hilbert's mental strength was enough for him to hold on for a while longer, but Jomo was no longer just beaten and didn't fight back. A gentle yet clear chant came from the rain of light. The Eye of the Rock Demon. Petrification. Under the blessing of top-level soul species, the power of the rock demon's eye is far beyond that of Hilbert, and can only be compared to the high-level light-falling Manjong. A pure gray light curtain is shot out from the rain of light, directly dividing the continuously washing rain of light into two pieces from far to near, from small to large. The majestic petrification force crossed the arrow of light and swept directly towards Herbert. With a change in his expression, Philo grabbed and flew up into the sky, still in a casting state. Such pure petrification force only needed to sweep at Herbert, enough to transform him into a lifeless statue. The gray light curtain swept through the land, turning large areas into lime-like dust. Seeing Zheluo once again ascend to the sky, the gray light curtain also swept towards the sky. The essence of the gray light curtain is the petrification power of the rock demon's pupils to transform other substances into earth elements, but due to the effect of the soul seed's petrification power, Jomo's petrification power has mutated into a terrifying power to transform all substances into lime dust. Even the mixture of water elements and wind elements wandering in the air was assimilated into lime dust by the gray light curtain. Zheluo frantically waved his wings of the wind away from the gray light curtain, but the light curtain grew larger and larger, with a faint tendency to wrap Zheluo inside. Zheluo held up Hilbert's collar and shouted in the air, "No need to hide, come out quickly." This is the top presence among high-level mages, and Jomo has already gained an absolute advantage without even using the second series. The advantages of soul type and realm are already enormous, and his rich combat experience and understanding of his own magic are far from comparable to new high-level mages. This battle was destined from the beginning that only hunting had a chance of winning, and even the most ferocious Bengal tiger could not withstand the siege of wolves. Only through bloody battles can there be a glimmer of hope. A huge crimson fireball fell towards Jomo, who was using his petrification power to pursue Jiro, followed by 2 or 3 equally huge fireballs. Heavenly Flame Funeral. Flame Rain. Weston unleashed his most powerful destructive magic, and dozens of huge crimson fireballs and meteors collectively fell towards Jomo. On the other side, pink-blue ribbons of water flowed out of the void, forming a huge shark with its fangs and mouth wide open, tearing towards Jomo. Irene's golden eyes lit up with pink-blue pupils at this moment. With a water cultivation level of 2, she was almost the most powerful person in the national government team except for Zheluo, and her mastery of magic was no longer limited to the release of the constellations of the stars. Evil sharks devour the world. The pink and purple constellations sparkled with brilliant patterns, and iron whips transformed from the power of the soul emerged from Sistan's body, whipping towards Jomo. Spirit Soul. Soul capturing and heart control. Siselton is the mage who specializes in the soul department of the National Palace team, and compared to Eileen, who is a minor cultivator, his soul department is much more sophisticated and powerful. The soul mastering mind, which excels in manipulating the mind, has been transformed into an iron whip that fiercely attacks the enemy's spirit in his hands. This way, even if the enemy's spiritual realm exceeds his level, he can still cause sufficient damage and harassment to the enemy, disrupting the enemy's magic release steps and creating perfect attack opportunities for his teammates. Faced with 3 high-level magic attacks simultaneously, Jomo finally moved his arrogant legs, and the entire ground quickly transformed into a huge lime field. Thick lime piled up into several small mountains, leaving only an empty space at the location of Jomo. Looking for the book garden. www.zhaoshuyuan.com covered all the defensive blind spots. Dozens of huge fireballs fell and caused explosions that spanned hundreds of meters. The moment the fireball exploded, it caused the first level of powerful damage, while the red flames that burned in place after the explosion were the second level of damage. The damage of fire magic is already extensive and long-lasting. Even the extraordinary spirit-level fire of Weston cannot completely burn the non-combustible material lime. The scattered burning flames are also extinguished by the exploding lime powder. The water shark, which exudes the color of a pink-blue girl, opens its big mouth and continuously devours the limestone mountain that blocks it. This water shark is a skill derived by Eileen through a soul seed with a devouring effect. Almost comparable to orthodox high-order destructive magic, the effect that can be achieved in special circumstances is even better. A large amount of lime was swallowed into the stomach, and the body of the water shark gradually grew and sank. The entire small limestone mountain was gnawed down by the shark, almost revealing the blank space at the foot of the limestone mountain. However, the body of the water shark has become bloated due to a large amount of lime ingestion. After reaching the upper limit of the amount that can be ingested, the water shark will almost become stone gray with a loud sound of bang, and the body formed by the water satin will burst like foam, bursting out a large amount of dust and blowing away. Sistan's iron whip of the soul is invisibly invisible and can directly strike Jomo's spirit through the obstruction of the lime mountain. The feeling conveyed to Sistan in the moment and the iron whip of his soul struck Jomo's spiritual body was that he was using the iron whip to strike a piece of refined steel that had undergone tempering. Even if it left a mark under that piece of steel, it could never harm the essence of the steel. 3 people, 3 high-level skills with different powers and effects, were easily resisted by Jomo with the same move. Chapter 7. Soak in Fire. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Zheluo recognized this move as he looked at the flowing lime ground on the ground, which was clearly the lime realm of Jomo's Earth series. In the field of lime, Jomo can easily convert a large amount of other substances into lime, and even pure elemental creations will be expelled. The elements inside will gradually transform into lime filled with soil elements. This lime field is very domineering and powerful, relying on the mutated lime effect. Unless it is suppressed with much stronger force than the realm of Jomo, it is very difficult to suppress this lime field in the same realm. Although Irene's field of water elements is equally powerful, water elements may not necessarily have an advantage when facing the special soil effect of lime. The blue hurricane once again spun into shape, transforming into a huge hurricane cover and rolling towards the grey patch underground. At the top of the hurricane stands the scattered four wings of Zheluo, whose territory is called the Realm of Style King. Within the realm, Zheluo will become the king of wind elements, and every strand of breeze and wind element particles that float within the realm will become subjects who obey Zheluo's commands and are unrecognizable to the naked eye. This is a field without special effects but equally powerful, making it the strongest field in the wind element field. This means that within the field, Zheluo will have control comparable to the top wind mage. Wind mages of the same level will have no fighting power in front of Zheluo, and other mages of the same level will also be defeated in the face of absolute wind control. The brutal hurricane completely tore the already shattered houses into powder, mixing the lime dust rolled up by the hurricane with the crushed dust of the houses, making it difficult to distinguish. The originally blue hurricane was dyed gray by this polluted dust. The wind is originally a colorless and formless thing, just like ice, but it appears in this form in front of you at this moment. Due to Jiro, the hurricane turned into a blue color, and as it swept up sand and dust, it turned back into a gray-black tornado. Human beings believe that something always has its fixed side, but in fact, all things, including humans, are constantly changing. The world is between motion and stillness, and what you see is always just his current appearance. The lime field, which had just been as solid as a rock, was now swept up by a hurricane, and the soil elements in the lime field were blown away by more subtle and invisible winds because they could not solidify into rock and soil. The lime field is gradually being disintegrated. And the speed of this disintegration is constantly accelerating, and Jomo felt the trend of disintegration in the field. For the first time, he looked at the young man with green hair above his head in surprise. This kind of clever attempt to crack his field was his first encounter, which was considered a broadening of his knowledge. Before, no one had attempted to indirectly crack his lime field, but without exception, they all failed. The reason for failure is simple. The lime that did not solidify into rock and soil is too fine, and breaking the iron wall made of lime requires equally fine or stronger force. Either the control can be refined to the point where breakthroughs can be made from every invisible grain of lime, which is almost impossible. Because no mage at this level would attack a higher level mage, but unfortunately, Jomo encountered Zheluo, a unique type with enough control within the realm to reach the level of a top mage, which is also one of the confidence that Zheluo dares to take on this task. As long as there is a way to deal with the power of lime in Jomo, there is hope of victory. Although Jomo is one of the top high-level mages, he is equally unlikely to have an absolute suppressive effect on others while maintaining his domain and confronting Philo. The raging purple thunder once again danced wildly and transformed into a sky full of thunderbolts, chopping towards Jomo in the lime ground. Jomo once again piled up a large amount of lime into a tower to resist the thunderous rain. The Tashin, formed by the aggregation of lime, is just a defensive creation that directly condenses some of Jomo's spirit. In terms of defense effectiveness, it is far inferior to the just-formed lime hill. Moreover, the penetration power of thunder magic is already stronger than that of water magic and fire magic. The lime tower was completely shattered under the power of the clever thunder, starting from the tip of the lime tower and collapsing inch by inch, until it collapsed with a loud bang halfway through. Upon seeing this, Jomo extended a hand to control large pieces of lime to aggregate, condensing and fusing from dispersed powdered lime dust into rough and sturdy limestone. A high wall was built on the limestone to surround Jomo's body, and the greatest effect that a bolt of lightning could have was to break open a large hole. The lime wall is half a meter thick and can create a large hole, which is already the result of the power of thunder-type spiritual species. Damn it, if I had a soul seed, I would definitely be able to break through this damn grey wall. Hilbert couldn't help but curse when he saw that the attack had no effect again. Don't be angry, it will only make you more embarrassed if you fail. Weston, who has always had a bad temper, calmed down now. The captain is creating an opportunity for us, seize it. After speaking, Weston rebuilt the fire constellation and a huge meteor shower descended again. The power of the fireball explosion under the control of Weston was concentrated on the hole in the grey wall that was cut out by Hilbert's lightning, and dozens of fireballs exploded, creating a 100-meter explosion circle that directly penetrated the already cracked grey wall. From the beginning, a point the size of a grain of rice quickly expanded to the entire grey wall, and under 2 consecutive attacks of destructive magic, the grey wall finally became unbearable and completely destroyed. Jomo, who devoted most of his energy to maintaining the earth element in his field from being blown away by the wind element, couldn't allocate much energy to repairing the damaged defense, leaving him in a state of being attacked from both sides. The flames generated by the Skyfire funeral in Weston just now have made the back of Jomo's clothes feel scorching hot, and the rock armor grey clothes on his body have no choice but to exert more strength to resist the scorching heat on his back. Zheluo, who could suppress his field, and Hilbert Jomo, who had a strong penetrating ray system, must prioritize solving one. Jomo made a decision in his heart and divided half of his spirit to start building the Earth constellation. The gray-brown Earth constellation is a 3-dimensional celestial body constructed by combining 7 equally gray-brown star maps from different angles. After the constellation slowly merged into the ground, the flowing lime on the ground began to condense at several points, and the lime formed more than 10 huge rock spikes by merging together. Each rock spike is of the same size, with huge spikes at both ends, and connected by a rock body over 10 meters wide. The pupil of the rock demon. The veil of heaven. Jomo made an extraordinary move, using zodiac signs to ensure stable release, but his move was made with the 3rd level of the Earth-type high-level heavenly gauze. More than a dozen giant rock spikes thrust towards Herbert with precision, like the sickle of death. Seeing more than a dozen rock spikes with spikes larger than his own body flying towards him, Herbert panicked and used his magic wand directly. The pure white boots with black soles have small wings on both sides, and every time Hilbert moves 1 foot and 2 pairs of white and chubby wings, Hilbert will move to a distance of at least 200 to 300 meters. This is a walking magic tool made from the most beautiful feathers on the wings of European white swans. Swans are the only living creatures named after the sky, and it is said that a swan can fly at a height more than 10 times the limit of human wind magic. But the speed of more than a dozen rock spikes is faster. They pursue the magical aura on Hilbert's body until the target dies or they are destroyed and exceed the farthest range that Jomo can control. Stepping on this magnificent and dazzling Hilbert, he couldn't hide and was forced to unleash his potential between life and death. With the power of his magic tool, Hilbert leaped into the air. The construction of the light system constellation was formed at a speed that had never been seen before, with precise and rapid formation. Light arrows flickered with golden light, illuminating Hilbert's entire body. The golden light shone on Hilbert, who was idle in the air, making him feel like an angel descending to the mortal world to punish the wicked. Light falling Manjang. Light arrow. Hundreds of sharp light arrows fell, and several huge grey rock spikes were broken by the waste. After being destroyed, the rock spikes lost all their vitality and fell to the ground. The remaining unbroken rock spikes have also reacted and turned their direction towards the falling Hilbert in the sky. The speed of the rock spike, coupled with its own descent, made it too late for Hilbert to release another round of arrow rain. With his advanced spiritual and control abilities, Hilbert quickly depicted 5 light system star maps. Guanyo. 5-fold guardianship. The protective light shields of the 3rd level of the 5th level light system are stacked together to form a strong barrier of light. The 7 star maps form a constellation, and even if the power of the 5 star maps is almost half that of high-level magic. The first huge and sharp rock thorn collided with the guardian barrier and did not immediately break it. Taking advantage of this gap, Hilbert jumped onto the body of the first rock thorn while stepping on his swan boots. The second and third rock spikes that followed instantly shattered the guardian barrier, while the fourth and fifth rock spikes, upon sensing Hilbert's magical aura, collided towards his position. Hilbert flashed again, and the rock thorn he was originally stepping on was shattered into two pieces. Hilbert bounced back and forth on various rock spikes with his swan boots, playing like a young child who had not yet grown up. On the other side, Weston was not idle either. As a well-coordinated teammate, Weston understood what he should do most at this moment. Zheluo and Hilbert were holding back most of Jomo's spirit, and this was the perfect time for them to engage in magical bombing. Weston raised his hands above his head, and a huge crimson flame was suddenly thrown down by him. Integrating dozens of explosive fireballs from flame rain is not a simple task. Flame has always been the most difficult magic to control due to its overly aggressive special effects. The destructive power that was originally scattered on dozens of fireballs is now concentrated on a giant fireball, and its power is even close to the high-level second-level hell firestone. The fall of the giant fireball made it impossible for Jomo to be as calm and composed as before. Most of his energy was used to compete with Philo for elemental dominance in the surrounding space and assassinate Hilbert. The remaining spiritual power was not enough for him to unleash the perfect defense against the giant fireball. The explosion generated by the giant fire cluster after landing was like a small volcanic eruption, with a large amount of lime baked into black residue by the high temperature of the flames. The scorching flames almost turned into liquid and flowed on the ground, baking the earth to a dry crack. The black smoke and burning flames blocked Zheluo's vision, and he kept his eyes slightly open to prevent the high-temperature flames from scorching his eyes. Spiritual energy was temporarily unable to enter the center of the flame, and Philo could only vaguely judge whether Jomo was still alive based on the subtle air circulation in the flame. Weston's innate talent greatly enhances the power of destructive magic, which is also why he can serve as the deputy captain of the National Palace team and the main destructive mage. The center of the flames was filled with eerie shadows, and a figure slowly emerged from the flames. The back of Jomo's shirt had been completely burned, and without any covering effect, he simply pulled off the front as well. Under the crimson glow of the fire, Jomo's robust bronze-colored abdominal muscles gleamed faintly, and his slightly reddened skin was roasted without any signs of burns. Jomo walked in the fire wearing his almost scorched sports shoes, and strangely, no flame ignited his body. "Well done boys, you surprised me," said Jomo. Chapter 8. Giant Beasts Treading on the City. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. The crimson flames not only did not burn Jomo physically, but also seemed to give him a special fire bath. The black furry little mask-like beard on Jomo's face was burned to the finish by the flames. Under the beard was a face with a bronze color, not very handsome, but only with straight facial features. It's hard to believe that this is the former captain of the Indian government, now a high-level and pinnacle mage. His face entered the crowd like millions of the most ordinary Indians, which may be one of the reasons why Jomo was able to hide for so many years. He is too inconspicuous. If it weren't for Zheluo fighting him to death, Zheluo wouldn't even look at him more while walking on the street. Under the magical bombardment of Weston, the rock armor gray clothes had been completely shattered, and it was impossible for the earth-type Jomo, who was the main cultivator, to defeat the Nationalist army. He had already realized this. It is unbelievable that with the strength of the high earth-level soul cultivator with the effect of the earth belt, Jomo was unable to suppress a group of young people who had just entered the high-level threshold. After reaching a higher level of cultivation, mages will experience their first qualitative change, and the individual strength between mages will quickly expand in this realm. High-level mages with strong control will develop their own unique magic path and matching magic skills based on their combat habits. At the same time, the power of magic reaching a higher level, coupled with several times the power of soul species and special effects, will greatly enhance the mage's combat power. The combination of control and effects will give rise to the most distinctive ability in the higher level domain. Domain. It has become extremely difficult for novice mages to defeat old and powerful players through a numerical advantage. There are too many huge advantages in the field, and without Zheluo's Wind King's field, it would be extremely difficult for them to punch against Giorgio's Lime field. Just relying on his own major in soil culture is enough to sweep the entire national government team, but unfortunately, there is no such thing as if in reality. If it is impossible to bury the nationalist army with lime in a dignified and quiet way, then he can only use even more intense flames to make the nationalist army understand the value of life. Jomo's soul fire is taken from the body of a demon, and the soul fire seed comes with the fire poison effect of the fire attribute demon. A huge fireball with black spots all over its body was burning with a large burst of flames on its surface, and the floating fireball at the top was like a small sun that never extinguished. The temperature of the giant fireball had not yet reached its peak, igniting everything around it. The soil, debris from houses, branches of trees, and everything visible was burning. The powerful and domineering fire element has already expelled most of the surrounding elements, even the air it breathes is scorching hot. Weston widened his eyes. No one in the nationalist team could understand the meaning of the scene in front of him better than he, a high-level fire mage. That blazing and scorching fireball, like a small sun, is a concrete manifestation of the realm of fire, transformed into the wizard's own ability. This is a power that only high-level mages can touch in the future. This Jomo actually touched the threshold of supernatural power at a higher level. And it has developed powerful skills beyond advanced magic, making this eye-catching black spot sun a moving fire realm. The limitation of a domain lies in its scope and immutability. As long as it can be detached from the domain's scope, it can avoid being suppressed by the domain. However, after the domain is released, it cannot be released again unless the mage expands the domain's scope in a short period of time. Jomo's black spot sunshine is obviously something that can be controlled and moved, which is too scary. The pink-blue water rippled from the void, and a huge pool began to form under the shining black sun. Every drop of water in the pool carried a little bit of suction. The suction force of the entire Fenshui heavenly pool is extremely huge, and there is a faint trend of the black spot sunshine being pulled and falling into the pool by the suction force of the Fenshui heavenly pool. Irene's bright and clear golden eyes turned pink-blue, and she, who majored in water, came to deal with Jomo's fire. Even before she broke through the advanced level of the water system, the Victorian family had already prepared a top quality water soul seed for her. Perhaps it should be said that after awakening to the water system in her early stage, this water soul seed had already been registered and reserved from the treasury for her. Gravity and devouring are the effects carried by Eileen's soul seed. Gravity makes the water flow controlled by Eileen heavy and destructive, and the devouring effect allows the water flow to continuously produce new water elements by devouring other magical sources. Hilbert and Eileen are the biggest trumps that Zheluo has specifically targeted at the Jomo Earthfire duel series, but it is not realistic for them to suppress Jomo alone. So, there was a hint of chaos in Philo's eyes. The space around the black spot sunshine began to gradually become distorted and chaotic, extending from the top of the black spot sunshine all the way down to the pink water heavenly pool, and the chaotic realm enveloped the entire battlefield. The rays emitted by the black spot and dazzling sun could no longer pierce the skin of the members of the Nationalist army, bringing them some residual heat. The temperature within the chaos curve began to disappear, and the color tone became chaotic, even Irene's vision began to blur. Irene looked up at the initiator who caused this series of strange images to appear on the side and said meaningfully, "Zheluo, your chaotic system is becoming increasingly mysterious and unpredictable." Zheluo's non-committal smile did not respond to her, continuing to manipulate the chaos realm to expand its scope and cover Jomo as well. Jomo frowned, realizing that his connection with Black Spot Yaoyang had been cut off. To be precise, in the chaotic realm, his spiritual power and control cannot be clearly conveyed to the black spot of the sun. The spiritual power and control he released were dispersed into every space by the chaotic environment. Yes, under the perception of Jomo, his spiritual power was everywhere in the surrounding space, but he could never unite to form a cohesive force. Jomo truly realized the eerie and terrifying aspects of the young man in front of him. His wind realm had incredible control, while his chaos realm was even more mysterious and mysterious. This eerie chaotic realm has a bit of a domain flavor inside, but is there a domain in the chaotic system domain? Jomo had never heard of the concept of chaos magic or the realm before, and the most chaotic magic he had ever seen might be the chaotic surface of the third level in the middle order. It can absorb and double the counterattack, which is a signature skill of chaos mages. As long as the spiritual power is strong enough to use the forbidden spell, it can be used. I haven't seen many high-level chaos mages before, not only in India, but also in the world. There aren't many high-level or above chaos mages, and super-level ones are considered national treasures no matter which country they are placed in. Without Jomo's continuous output of magic and maintaining his shape through control, the black spot sunshine disintegrated under the suction and devouring of the pink water heavenly pool. In addition to the pink water heavenly pool, the chaos curve realm is constantly weakening, transferring, and absorbing the energy of the black spot sunshine. Soon, the black spot sunshine was decomposed into a remnant rainbow and completely merged into every corner of the chaos curve realm. The threat of the black spot and dazzling sun was lifted, and the oppressive magic that had been released by Jomo disappeared too easily, not to mention the caster's Jomo. Even Hilbert couldn't react immediately. It was the first time he had seen Philo use the unexpected chaos magic of a chaotic surface, and this move startled his two eyes. Good guy, Captain's chaotic system hasn't been very useful for a month or two, and it has become so eerie and mysterious even after breaking through advanced levels. However, Hilbert didn't hesitate for long before he realized it. Now is not the time to be surprised and dazed. The constellation of light has reappeared, and the construction of this constellation by Hilbert has become extremely skilled. If anyone can release magic 5 or 6 times in a row at the critical moment of life and death, from now on, he can release this magic even with his eyes closed. Hilbert is now able to release a steady amount of light in 5 to 3 seconds, which is quite astonishing and ranks among the top players in the government team. The gains from this Indian experience of Hilbert cannot be insignificant. The insight in a moment of life and death is more than 1,000 words of guidance and connection, and there may be a thunder-type soul seed in the future. This is still in the process of being experienced by other countries. By the time of the Venice final, Hilbert would definitely be able to stabilize his release speed within 2 seconds. At that time, with 2 powerful and wide-ranging destructive spells, Light and Thunder, Hilbert was confident in showcasing his skills in Venice. Light arrows appeared densely around Hilbert, but when fired, they appeared directly in all directions around Jomo. When the light arrow was shot, it entered the chaotic ripples with slight ripples, and countless chaotic ripples appeared around Jomo. The light arrow shot from the ripples and stabbed directly at the vital joints of Jomo. Jomo clenched his fist and smashed it into the chaotic environment on the ground. The rock, with a hint of magma, burst out from around his fist and transformed into a lava stone armor with lava patterns, covering Jomo's body, defending his vital joints. It's the earth armor, a soil-based combat technique developed by the US military. Unexpectedly, Jomo combined this move with fire-based magic to create fiery rock material. Zheluo's face darkened slightly. Hilbert was unwilling to use thunder magic and released dozens of thunderbolts on Jomo. The thunderbolts directly took a 360-degree electric bath on Jomo, who was clad in lava armor, through chaotic ripples. The defense of lava armor combined with fire power is even more amazing, and Thunderbolt not only scratches the shell of the armor, but is almost a chicken rib attack. After seeing that Hilbert's attack was ineffective, Zheluo once again stirred the chaotic ripples around Jomo. The ripples twisted into a ball and turned into an ever-changing chaotic vortex, rolling towards Jomo. Jomo immediately sensed the danger brought by the chaotic vortex and quickly controlled the ground to use the ground wave skill to hide from the Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. After reaching a higher level, Jomo rarely used the first-level ground wave skills anymore. Unexpectedly, today he was forced by a group of backers to the point where he even used the first-level magic. Even though Jomo had already dodged very quickly, the chaotic system could not be judged by common sense. The entire chaotic realm can be glued together by Philo, and it is also possible to connect the chaotic realm around Jomo with the chaotic vortex. The large area from the arm of the lava armor to the left chest was shattered by the chaotic vortex, and even the arm under the armor was crushed with large muscles. Even the bones of Bisensen could be seen on his chest, and Jomo took a big bite of blood. After fighting for so long, only Zheluo's chaotic vortex truly dealt him effective damage. The Chu Jing was shattered, and Zheluo looked coldly at Xiaomo and said, "Xiaomo, you can't win anymore. Leave yourself some dignity." "It's not over yet," said Jomo, wiping away the bloodstain from the corner of his mouth. After speaking, he casually created a moon-white orbit, which turned into a dimensional gate on the ground. The cold roar of a tiger pierced through the moon-white dimensional gate, and the first to step out was a huge tiger claw with alternating orange, white, and black colors. Next are the tiger's head, body, and finally 2 hind limbs. The Tiger King, who was as big as a sports stadium, angrily let out loud roars of tiger roar. The roar of the tiger soared into the clouds, passing through the middle-class communities of the city and reaching the wealthy areas of the port. From the high-rise buildings of the port to the slums, it appears that a towering Tiger King suddenly appears from the ground. The Tiger King's head is not as big as the top floor of the apartment, almost like a walking tall building. Chapter 9. The Truth Buried in People's Hearts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. The black-striped Tiger King lifted his giant paw and aimed it at the few tiny humans below him, fiercely patting them. The Tiger King's strength is probably at the level of the Grand Commander, and it should be very close to the peak of the Commander level. Zheluo once again unfolded the wings of the wind and dodged the claw strike of the black-striped Tiger King, while the other few also used their own magical tools to dodge. Jomo is truly the former captain of the Indian government and has the determination to cultivate dimensional beasts to this level. Not everyone can make this decision. The money used to cultivate dimensional beasts can be used to purchase several good magic tools and other cultivation resources for oneself, and it is also good to feed the contracted beast to one's own son. Under the wanted situation, it was almost impossible for Jomo to purchase high-level magic resources through normal channels. Apart from searching for them in the wilderness, he could only purchase them from the black market. However, the price in the black market is so high, so he invested the resources he had saved over the years into summoning systems. The Tiger Tribe is an extremely powerful group among demons, almost the strongest tribe under the true dragon. There are legends about dragon and tiger creatures in various countries around the world, and the number of real dragons is so rare that they have almost become creatures that only exist in legends today. The Kahu tribe is different, whether it is the Bengal ferocious tiger living in South Asia and Bangladesh, or the Dunhuang demon tiger and Kunlun ancestor tiger living in northwest China, as well as the Tianshan holy tiger living in the ancient Tian Shan mountains, or the northeast tiger tribe in northeast China. They are all powerful and shocking races. A team of human mages and tiger demons of the same level often end up with a score of 37 when they encounter each other. For humans, after 3 minutes, the tiger demon is 7% full. Although humans have the saying of tigers and wolves, in reality, wolf creatures cannot be compared to tiger creatures. According to statistics, all known tiger demon tribes in the world have the weakest strength as war generals when they reach adulthood. At the same time, there were countless wolf race demons who were unable to break through the slave level throughout their lives, and the two races were completely incomparable in terms of their bloodline strength and nobility. The only creature that can be compared to the tiger tribe is the lion living on the grassland. The fierce tiger, regardless of its male or female, lives alone, while the male lion lives in groups with the female lion. Judging from their ability to survive alone in the wilderness and dominate a large territory, the combat power of tiger creatures is undoubtedly much stronger than that of lion creatures, at least in the magical world. Zheluo was taught from a young age that he could not compromise or hesitate in the face of people who came with great momentum. The powerful attack of the Jomo Earth-Fire Duel series has been resolved, and the summoning series is already his last battle. Zheluo understands that the only way to finally tame this South Asian tiger is through this summoning series showdown. Similarly, a star orbit flickering with moonlight was casually squeezed out, and the door of the dimension carrying another realm of creatures opened again. The golden hair emitting fluorescence appears dignified and majestic, and the huge beast's claws can cause massive houses to collapse with just one claw, creating an effect no less than a small earthquake. On the back, which is even larger and longer than the runway, a pale golden flame burns, and a red diamond mark is carved on the huge and majestic lion head. This is the powerful creature from the summoning plane. The Flame Lion. The first demon summoned by the middle level of Zheluo after awakening the summoning system was the Flame Lion, but it seemed to dislike the title of demon and had always wanted Zheluo to call it the Noble Lion God. It is impossible for Zheluo to achieve his wish. He even wants to be called the Noble Lion God by Zheluo, who is a summoner. He wants to go against the heavens. Roar, roar, roar. The flame-mad lion let out a roar and rushed forward to fight against the black-striped Tiger King. Its strength did not reach the level of the Grand Commander, but this did not hinder the flame-mad lion's determination and courage to challenge the stronger. It was precisely the spirit of the Flame Lion, which was fearless of strong enemies and power, that resonated with Zheluo's temper. Zheluo endured this proud golden-haired lion for so many years, and it was not until Zheluo unexpectedly contracted with the Earth Evil Queen that gradually made the golden-haired lion recognize his identity as a working lion. Zheluo exclaimed that the catfish effect does not discriminate between races, and only by making it feel the sense of crisis of being snowed and its replaceability can it work hard. This is truly a truth in the world that can be applied to anyone, any race. There has been a heated discussion on the battle power between lions and tigers, but Zheluo always believed that no person or creature can have eternal strength. The Chinese say that snakes and fish can transform into dragons, that's the reason. However, compared to the statement of the Oriental dragon, Zheluo still agrees more with the theory of survival of the fittest and evolution. All living beings, including humans, can evolve to a higher level. The strong argument of evolution theory is that most of the known leaders and monarchs in the world today are not naturally noble species. Demons who are promoted to the monarch level have their own unique characteristics and strength, and are all unique beings in the world. Those born with noble bloodline and strong strength are actually the absolute minority and outliers in the demon society, but not all of these born demon noble species occupy an absolute dominant position in the demon society. The top of the demon society is mostly those who do not know from which creatures evolved into kings. Although it is difficult for demons to evolve from weak servants, there is almost no ceiling to rise. On the contrary, most noble and powerful races have a clear ceiling, and it is even harder to evolve further at this ceiling. From this perspective, humans have some similarities with demons. The raging lion and the black-striped Tiger King fought fiercely, and the 1-kilometer-long and wide slum was destroyed into ruins under the full force of these two commanding creatures. Zheluo and Jomo, the two summoners, have also formed a battle. Zheluo spreads his blue wings and continuously releases hurricanes and chaotic waves in the air to attack Jomo. Weston, Eileen, Hilbert, and others constantly bombarded Jomo with various high-level magic on the ground, while Shed directly summoned his contracted beast, Griffin William, to bear damage and pull for everyone. Sister Tun, on the other hand, waited for an opportunity to use his psychic system to interfere with Jomo's casting, and for a moment, the entire slum became a battlefield for high-level wizards. After the release of various magical powers, the light of magic and the sound of explosions echoed one after another, and large areas of houses and ground collapsed and destroyed. Kalikat, a community mainly inhabited by the Dalits, seemed to have become a dilapidated city that had been forcibly demolished. Located in the center of Kalikat, on the top floor of a high-end office building built along the port, a tall and muscular man with wheat-colored skin is smoking a specially made Indian cigar, receiving careful attention from a seductive woman beneath him. Watching the woman's low brow and pleasing expression, the man smiled with satisfaction and touched her head. The woman immediately understood and left the top floor without wiping off the stains on her face. The man comfortably picked up his suit pants and sneered as he watched the battle between the two huge, towering demons in the direction of the slum in the distance. The explosion of magical light came frequently. But all of this made the man laugh even more heartily and recklessly, and in the end, he laughed wildly without considering his image. These British people are really efficient. It seems that Joe and Dalit can't escape this time. There used to be that old thing Mobin protecting you, but this time I'm using a British knife. I see Mobin won't have a chance to protect you again. And as soon as this beast fight is over, the demolition task of the slums is also considered completed. Finally, there is no need to smell the sour smell emanating from those Dalits in the city anymore. The man fiercely said that the Mobin he spoke of was a well-known figure in India. One of the true national high-level magical leaders in India, Mobin, the speaker of the Indian Magic Association, and also a teacher and former recommender of Jomo. It can be said that he was the one who made Como the former captain of the Indian government, but it was also because of him that Como ended up hiding in a slum after being wanted. Today the man's voice grew louder and his tone became even more fierce. If it weren't for that old thing Mobin, how could that bastard Dalit like Jomo dare to climb onto my head and want to be the captain of the government? At this moment, the man's expression had become twisted and distorted, and there was no trace of male charm on his still handsome face. All he had was humiliation and unwillingness from the depths of his soul, as well as deep jealousy. Jomo was once just a Dalit who parasitized at the bottom of Indian society, not even a human being. He had such amazing talent and opportunities, and under the guidance of the then Chief Minister of the Indian Magic Association, Mobin, he began to encounter truly scarce knowledge and resources. In the end, he was even promoted to the position of captain of the Indian government by Mobin. Every time he thinks of this past, the man grits his teeth in hatred and curses at Jomo with the most vicious words, but at the same time, he lacks the courage to insult Mobin. He is ultimately the speaker of the Indian Magic Association or the highest level Brahmin. The man's name is Shak, and he is a young master from a tribal tribe in India. If he had been a tribal prince before. At the same time, Shak was also the vice-captain of the Indian government team during the reign of Jomo. He was once a popular candidate for the position of captain of the Indian government, but even after Jomo lost his captain position due to being framed, he was unable to rise to the position of captain of the government. After the end of the World University War, Shah shed all his aura and was unable to secure a position in any magical organization or government after graduating from the university. He could only return to his family and continue to be a prince of the land. Recently, his family received news that the government is about to start a major project, but they have encountered difficulties in land acquisition. Zhaohuiyuan.com The slums where Dalit lives are within the scope of land acquisition, but as the contractor of the land acquisition project, the Shah family does not want to give a single rupee to those Dalits. Sending out engineering teams and mages to forcibly demolish them will cause huge domestic and international public opinion, and the Shah family does not want to be unable to earn money and cause trouble. In the end, Shak, who had a grudge against Joe, stepped forward and took on the job. Firstly, he completely crushed his former rival to death in the mud, and secondly, he wanted to prove his ability and loyalty to the family, letting those who controlled the family know that Shock was not a second-generation ancestor who only relied on the protection of the family's shade. Coincidentally, he took advantage of the opportunity for the British government team to come to India for training. Even if these young people cannot defeat Jomo, they can still consume a lot of his strength. This way, the success rate of the assassins he sends out in the future will be higher. What Xiao Xun didn't expect was that the current British government team was so strong that even veteran high-level players like Jomo could handle it. But it's better this way. With the money spent on hiring high-level mages, he can still raise a few decent cows with the remaining money. Thinking of the beautiful Bollywood actress Shak whom I had previously admired ignited another fire in my heart. Before that, I felt a pain in my flesh because that woman's asking price was very high. After the demolition project is completed, I will be able to gain the family's attention and have the money left to hire a high-level mage to kill Jomo. At that time, the woman will have to obediently climb onto her own bed and pout up her beautiful and fair buttocks. Thinking of the beauty, Shock's body involuntarily swelled a bit. But his face darkened, and the slum, which had been recorded as a war, suddenly shut down. Nearly half of the slums have been demolished and the unrest has stopped, even the lion and tiger demons who are selflessly fighting each other have stopped.